Chapter 229 Who to Send to the Border, Part 1. On the trip back to the manor from the palace, Jiyu Huaijiang was filled with complex feelings. Stepping out of his carriage, he saw Jiyu Shubai and the others waiting outside to receive him. Word must have already spread. "Father, are you all right?" Yu Fu stepped forward and helped Jiyu Huaijiang inside, which made him laugh. "Even though I have lived as long as I have, I am not so old that I cannot walk. There's no need to help me." Head General suffered a shock while in court. It would be best to offer a bit of this will keep outsiders from thinking that everyone in Marquis Gu's manor are durable enough to endure any beating. Yu Fu's words were not without merit, as she casually looked around outside and snorted. That blunt and unfriendly expression slightly resembled Zun Kai's. Everyone returned inside the manor, and the main gate slowly closed. Outside the manor's gate, some peddlers and pedestrians nearby were all trained in martial arts, so they were naturally able to hear what Yu Fu said. Could it be that they had been noticed? One man tapped a man who was walking in the same direction on the shoulder, and the latter looked around before quickly leaving to report. The Candid Haws seller gave a youth a skewer of Candid Haws, then gave him a look. The youth then left in the opposite direction. Yang Zheng lay on the roof of Marquis Gu's manor and watched the quick changes occurring outside. Shit, there are still a number of people observing. Do they really think the Jiyu family's army is easy to manipulate? Shubai, we really need to thank you for your strategy this time. Sure enough, Yin Shuo fell for it and stole the military report that we planned. Jiyu Huaijiang took a sip of tea and slowly said, "If not for this, I really would not have had a chance to speak with His Majesty about Western Kuan planning to invade. Now, His Majesty has already agreed to hand down a secret order to mobilize troops. I can now be at ease." Prior to this, Jiyu Huaijiang had constantly been anxious. Western Kuan had used a princess to act as a cover. This battle would surely be fought with nothing held back. If they did not prepare properly, the situation on the battlefield would definitely be very difficult, but if they wanted to mobilize the troops, they would surely need to inform Emperor Ning. Based on Emperor Ning's desire for harmony, he most likely would not agree. With Marquis Gu's manor enjoying the Emperor's favor, Yin Shuo would definitely be seeing red, so it was just a matter of time before he took action. As a result, he deliberately created this opening, making use of the people that Yin Shuo hid outside the manor. This misled Yin Shuo into stealing the fake military report and convincing the imperial censors to impeach Jiyu Huaijiang in court. Speaking of, we really must thank Princess Danyang for this. If not for her stopping the deity of medicine's carriage outside of the city, I really would not have known that she had planted observers outside the manor. Upon looking into it, not only were there people from Princess Danyang's side, but there were also some from Yin Shuo's side. This worked perfectly in our favor. Jiyu Juji indignantly said, "Yin Shuo and young Miss Yin are on very bad terms. I can guarantee that they are not born of the same mother." For the sake of ensuring that the identity of her birth mother cannot be uncovered, he does not allow young Miss Yin to display her talents. Because she did, he starved her until she was emaciated. Such a cruel person, how could they be worthy of the position of Prime Minister of Eastern Ling? During the past few days, he interacted with Yin Jiao more and more, and he was getting more and more information. The secret that the father and son of the Yin family had kept hidden would eventually come out. It was definitely going to come out. Jiyu Shubai nodded and said, "Yin Shuo has unfathomable ideas. He should have already guessed our plan and will not take this lying down. The observers stationed outside can no longer be relied upon. He will definitely think, cheating." Qi Ting, who had been confined to the private prison in the manor, was now the chess piece that Yin Shuo was most likely to make use of. Those sorts of words were also the only ones that could push Jiyu Huaijiang to make up his mind and not be so soft-hearted. Jiyu Huaijiang waved his hand, no longer wanting to talk about this matter. "Forget it. Leave this matter to Father to think about. Right now, Father has an important matter that I must send one of you to handle." The matter that Father is speaking of, is it going to the border to direct the troops? That's indeed the case. Jiyu Huaijiang's gaze landed on Jiyu Shubai. He was the heir to Marquis Gu's manor and his eldest son. Whether it was martial arts or anything else, he was the best. Normally, If there was something that had to be handled, Jiyu Huijiang would send him to take care of it. Just as Jiyu Shubai was about to speak up, his eyes turned to Jiyu Juji, then quickly looked away. Recently, Jiyu Juji had been in communication with Yin Jiao. If he could find out about the secret that Yin Yang and Yin Shuo were holding so dear, they might be able to turn the tide and become proactive rather than passive. Like that, they would not need to worry about opposition from Yin Shuo. Looking at it like this, there was only one choice. Jiyu Hanmo cupped his hands and said, "Father, allow son to go." Chapter 230 Cover Up Today's Humiliation, Part 2. This was precisely what Jiyu Huijiang intended. Jiyu Shubai said, "Father, ever since father had you escort eldest sister and Yunyang back to Jinling, father has thought about a number of things. You are the eldest son. If anything happened in the manner that father was unable to handle, it was sure to be you who handled it. This has been unfair to you and your younger brothers. If Jiyu Shubai truly died last time in Changju, what would he do?" He asked himself this question countless times. In the end, he changed his way of thinking. This time, he did not choose Jiyu Shubai. On the other side, Jiyu Shubai was a little unaccustomed to this. "Eldest brother, I will be coming of age next year. I am not much younger than you and second brother." Jiyu Hanmo pushed on. "By the time that eldest brother and second brother were 19, you had both taken on important tasks. It would not do to keep treating me the same way as the three younger ones and keep me hidden behind eldest brother, right?" Jiyu Hanmo had learned how to persuade others. Ever since Tian Shu left, he had become much gentler. Who knew if it was because he now had Tian Shu as a friend, or it was because of the matter concerning Jiyu Wenqing and Yu Guan, but he was no longer as extreme as before. Jiyu Wenqing stood up and smiled, saying, "Third brother is looking down on us. You getting a chance is one thing, but why is it that we have to hide behind eldest brother?" That's right. Third brother is looking down on us." Jiyu Xiong and Jiyu Yi waved their fists. They were no longer as afraid of Jiyu Hanmo. Jiyu Hanmo glanced sideways at the two, "Then how about you two take my place?" The pair of fists slowly pulled back. Watching the brothers argue and tease each other, Jiyu Huijiang felt comforted. "Then we'll go with that. Hanmo, before setting out, father will hand the secret orders from His Majesty to you. It's just that you won't be able to bring too many people. You will need to keep a low profile to keep this trip secret. You will need to be more careful." Secret orders. Jiyu Shubai's eyebrow slightly twitched and suddenly knew what to do with Qi Ting. In the study of the Prime Minister's manor, the floor was covered in shattered porcelain. Standing outside were Imperial Censor Xia and Imperial Censor Dong. They had changed out of their court clothes and were about to step inside but were given a fright by the sound of shattering porcelain. Not long after the servant went inside to report, Yin Shuo personally came out to receive them. "Lord Imperial Censors. Prime Minister Yin." After their greetings, Yin Shuo pointed outside, "The new servant in the study is clumsy and broke quite a bit of porcelain. It didn't scare my lords, did it? Let's go to the front hall to speak." No matter how clumsy the servant was, they should not have broken that much porcelain, right? Moreover, they did not hear the sound of anyone apologizing come from inside. The two glanced at the outer study with dark looks. The door was closed tight, so the situation inside could not be seen. "The front hall, we came here in secret, so it would be best if Prime Minister did not allow too many people to know about this." "Don't worry. My Prime Minister's manor does not have much, but the servants are tight-lipped." Sure enough, the two accepted his way of handling things. Today's visit was just to ask Prime Minister one question. Although we agreed to not reveal that it was Prime Minister who gave us the report, now that the report has been proven to be fake, may we ask how exactly Prime Minister ended up with the report? Military secrets were not things that normal people could get their hands on. Moreover, this was from Jiyu Huijiang to the Jiyu family's army. They were famous for their strict discipline. It has indeed been proven to be fake, but do my lords not want to know what order Marquis Jiyu sent to the border? That, the two exchanged a glance then quickly said, "Hasn't Lord Marquis Jiyu already explained this matter to His Majesty? Didn't His Majesty also say that Lord Marquis Jiyu is absolutely loyal?" Yin Shuo subconsciously clenched his fist, blood oozing from the back of his hand where he had been cut by the shattered porcelain. His Majesty believes in his loyalty, but I do not. My lords, just wait and see. I will find evidence to prove it. He had been careless this time and fell for Jiyu Huijiang plot. But he did not believe that Jiyu Huijiang would go through all of that trouble just to send some meaningless order to the border. He would definitely get to the bottom of this. He would definitely cover up the humiliation that he had suffered. Chapter 231 Beauty Under the Moonlight, Part 3. The crescent moon hung in the night sky, and someone leaned back to watch the moon atop a small building in a garden. A pink embroidered shoe swayed back and forth from the tip of an exquisitely shaped foot. A gust of wind blew, and the trees swayed. The girl with her legs raised immediately brought her legs together and looked around. Jiyu Shubai's unwavering figure remained atop the roof. Balanced on just one foot, he was as steady as Mount Tai. It seemed that Jiyu Shubai had perfectly learned the techniques that Tianshu had taught them. After achieving mastery, he was even steadier than Tianshu. You were the one who begged me to bring you up to the roof to view the moon, but now you're scared. He moved from roof tile to roof tile like a crane flying past some wetland, creating a number of ripples on the water. Was there any girl who was not afraid of the dark or of ghosts? Yu Fu was not really afraid of ghosts. She just noticed the trees sway with the wind, and it looked a bit like a ghoul had reached out with its hand. It seemed as if Jiyu Shubai knew what she was thinking, as he sat next to her and pointed at the trees shrouded in shadows. In truth, all of that is my hair. When the wind blows, it moves with it. It's not a ghost. He turned his head and showed Yu Fu his long hair that was partially tied up. Sure enough, it was moving with the wind. She reached out for the bottom of his hair, and the tips of his hair swirled around on the palm of her hand, tickling her and making her giggle. After looking between the hair and the trees for a while, she was no longer afraid. Eldest brother, your hair tie has gotten loose. I'll help you tie it up again. Jiyu Shubai said, you can't even tie up your own hair. I heard that when you first came to the capital, you had a granny come and tie it up for you. Are you sure that you know how to use a hair tie? Though he said this, he did not hesitate in the slightest, handing the hair tie to Yu Fu. Yu Fu nodded vigorously and suddenly realized that he had his back to her and could not see. I do. Did eldest brother not see a few days ago? The fur near Pang Ju's ears got too long and was getting into its food bowl. I was the one who tied it up. She was actually comparing Pang Ju's fur to his hair. Jiyu Shubai laughed at the comparison. It turns out that our Yu Fu was so amazing. I will need to learn how to tie up Pang Ju's fur when I get the chance. Yu Fu put a bit of strength into her hands and brought the hair together. What will eldest brother learn this for? I'll learn it to tie up your hair. Yu Fu's hands stopped, and a sudden gust of wind blew past and pulled the hair tie from his hair, scattering his long and inky black hair. He turned his head, and half of his face was obscured by his hair, giving him an even gentler appearance. Holding the white hair tie, Yu Fu looked on and was at a complete loss. Under the brilliant moonlight, your beauty remains unmatched. With your elegant figure, feelings of concern quietly stir. She had always thought that those two lines from the poem were describing the beauty of a woman, but after today, of the many people in the world, they probably fit nobody other than Jiyu Shubai. Give it to me. Yu Fu looked at him in a daze and only understood what he meant after a brief pause. Oh, here. Jiyu Shubai smiled and received his hair tie before casually placing it on the back of his neck. Not long later, the two saw a middle-aged man walk out under the moonlight, sneakily heading toward a certain courtyard. That happened to be the direction of the manor's private prison. Jiyu Shubai handed a pouch to Yu Fu. She had noticed the smell of candy since much earlier, casually plucking out a piece and placing it in her mouth. Eldest brother, you have one too. Yu Fu kept her eyes on Chi Ju's parting figure and casually brought a piece of candy up to his mouth. The latter looked at Chi Ju then opened his mouth. Now that Chi Ju had gone to visit the prison, what would they do? Jiyu Shubai crossed his arms in front of his chest and casually leaned back on the roof. We wait. Yu Fu's mind wandered and suddenly saw a colorful cherry blossom below. She tugged on the corner of his clothes. Eldest brother, I want a cherry blossom. She wanted a cherry blossom? He sat up straight and followed Yu Fu's gaze, immediately understanding the situation. She wanted to use this to treat him like an errand boy and have him fetch her some cherry blossom. Very well, but I don't know which one you want. How about I bring you along to pick one? Before Yu Fu could react, he picked her up, and the two soared into the air. Their figures soared through the night sky, floating like leaves in autumn and slowly landing on a branch. The tree's branches were so thin, so how could they bear the weight of two people? Moreover, one of them was someone who knew nothing about how to adjust their weight. Although she was a young and thin girl, her weight was still a real concern. Yu Fu was so afraid that she did not dare look down. She could only hug him tightly. Chapter 232 Last Meal, Part 4. The sound of a girl crying came from inside the prison. The private prison in Marquis Gu's manor was not large, and it was very rarely used to imprison anyone. As a result, it was very empty. This happened to be when the night was darkest and the wind fiercest. This made the girl's cries sound even more ghostly. Tinga, don't cry. Chi-Ju placed the food basket on the table, and the fragrance of the food spread. They were all of the foods that Chi-Ting liked eating. He pulled out some chopsticks and was about to place them on the table, but after a bit of thought, he did not feel at ease and simply placed them on the bowl. Go ahead and eat. Dad came to see you in secret. If we're discovered, you won't be able to eat. Dad. The crying came to an abrupt end, as Chi-Ju quickly covered up Chi-Ting's mouth when she cried out. Keep it down. It was hard for Dad to come and see you. If you attract any attention, it would be terrible. Chi-Ting cried for a little longer before finally calming down. Dad, have things gotten that bad for us? Grandfather is someone who has worked in this manor for his entire life. Even Lord Marquis gives him a bit of face. Although I came back under someone else's direction, I did not have a chance to sell out Lord Marquis. Why have I been locked up here for over a month? Chi-Ju's heart also ached for his daughter, handing the chopsticks to her. Eat first, eat first. During her time in prison, Chi-Ting was given very little to eat. Upon seeing all of the meat and fish, she began wolfing it down. Don't blame Lord Marquis. Naturally, Lord Marquis will give your grandfather a bit of face, but there is a difference between master and servant. The more he gives him face, the less he needs to do it in the future. This time, your grandfather did not speak up for you at all. What? Chi-Ting was sullen. Is he still my grandfather or not? Does he want me to die here? What a ferocious old man. Chi-Ju angrily glared at her. With you doing such a dreadful thing, why did you not consider whether or not your grandfather and I could be implicated? You're the one with a ferocious mind. Dad, I didn't. How could I implicate you and grandfather? Prime Minister Yin said that as long as I helped him, he would definitely protect our family and make us wealthy. Moonlight entered the room through a small window, and the bars in the window created a shadow that made her expression looked very twisted. Chi-Ju looked at her face in shock, as the feelings of grief were made apparent on his brow. Dad, what's wrong? It's nothing. Dad was just thinking that regardless of what you did, Lord Marquis would not implicate me or your grandfather. After all, we have served the manor for many decades, but you are different. A bad feeling filled Chi-Ting. She looked at the delicious foods placed on the table and recalled that this was the first time that Chi-Ju had come to visit her since her imprisonment. He even brought such delicious food with him. Her entire body shuddered. Dad, this shouldn't be a last meal, right? Chi-Ju remained silent and raised his head to look at her. Dad, save me. Save me. I don't want to die. After a long while, Chi-Ju tidied up the leftovers on the table and placed them back into the basket, returning the table to the same state that it had been in when he first arrived. Chi-Ting tightly hugged his arm. Dad, there's no need to say anything else. Something has happened at the manor recently. Prime Minister Yin has too many people watching, and Lord Marquis is troubled by this the most. Third young sir will be going to the border shortly. This matter is now pressing, or he would not be forced to have you killed. If there is anything to blame, it would be you choosing to follow the wrong path. The matter has been taken care of. Eldest young sir, please be at ease. Jiyu Shubai spoke in a heavy voice. Steward Chi, this time, it will depend on her choice. If she feels remorseful, we will consider the positions of you and the old steward and forgive her past misdeeds. If she wants to sell out third brother, he stopped there, as saying too much would just be hurtful. How could Chi-ju not know? He bowed deeply. Regardless of what she chooses, this servant will first thank eldest young sir for giving her this chance. Ji-yu Shubai nodded, and the person carrying the food basket left in the direction that he had come from. He was both a loyal servant and a loving father. When the two came into conflict, loyalty won out. Yu Fu could not help but feel emotional. Marquis Gu's Manor's servants really are loyal. Only a righteous and noble official like the head general is able to have such loyal servants. Ji-yu Shubai laughed and said, "Loyalty is a quality that is inherited most easily. Everyone in the Ji-yu family army reveres father's character. This is also true of the old steward and Steward Chi. Unfortunately, they did not do a good job of raising their daughter." Yu Fu looked at him in confusion. Eldest brother means to say that Chi Ting is certain to not feel remorse. Chapter 233 Going to Yushan Building Together, Part 5. Ji-yu Hanmo led a group of 20 soldiers and left the manor. Leaving on fast horses, they maintained a low profile. Looking carefully, they still had their backs straight and carried themselves in a manner unique to soldiers. The speed of the horses was also beyond what a normal horse could reach. Military horses were the best of the best and have seen all sorts of things on the battlefield. As a result, they were steadier than normal horses. Ji-yu Hanmo's horse carried a white sack on its back that contained a variety of medicinal herbs. They were given to him by Yu Fu right before they set out. She said that they grew around the border region. She told him that he should order the soldiers to harvest some more. They should then be steeped in boiling water. First, summer was fast approaching, and it would help reduce the effects of the heat. Second, the people of Western Kuan had already considered something as underhanded as poisoning Ji-yu Huijiang, thus there was a possibility that they would try again. If he was poisoned, it would be able to reduce the effects of the poison until a doctor could treat him. Little Yu Fu, you're clearly an immortal practitioner of poison, but I feel that you are becoming more and more like an immortal practitioner of medicine. When will you check my pulse for me? Ji-yu Yi watched Ji-yu Hanmo cheerfully load the sack of medicinal herbs onto his horse and felt that things were a little unfair. Yu Fu treated third brother so well, so why did she not give him any medicine? Yu Fu smirked, "I only know how to treat poisons and only have a basic understanding of other things. There are some things that I learned from the imperial physicians. If sixth brother does not dislike the idea, how about I check your pulse?" After Zun Kai left, Yu Fu no longer allowed the imperial physicians to address her as master. She was worried about attracting too much unnecessary attention. Those imperial physicians were reluctant to do so, fearing that she would push them out from being part of Immortals Valley's ranks. It was only after Yu Fu tried to provide all manners of explanations and reasonings that they were finally willing to relent. All right. Ji-yu Yi extended his hand, and Yu Fu felt his pulse before bursting out in laughter. "What is it?" Seeing Ji-yu Yi completely confused, Yu Fu smiled and said, "Sixth brother, what did you eat this morning?" "Just the usual. Some steamed buns and kanji." "Oh right, there was also this pastry. Little Mu too bought it outside for me." Yu Fu covered her mouth and had an enigmatic expression. "Sixth brother should return to your courtyard." "Don't ask why. You will know once you get back." Ji-yu Yi did not know what to make of this, and Ji-yu Seong was also very curious, accompanying him back to their courtyard. Ji-yu Wenqing was curious and asked, "Yu Fu, what exactly is going on?" Just as he said this, Ji-yu Yi, who had not gotten very far, suddenly held his doubled over. "Oh, my stomach really hurt." "It hurts much. Let's quickly get back." Yu Fu helplessly said. Little Mu Tu's attempt to win favor backfired. The pastry that he bought was probably dirty, and sixth brother ended up with an upset stomach. Ji-yu Wenqing could not stop himself from letting out a chuckle before giving up entirely and laughing. "This is bad. This is really bad. Little Mu Tu is definitely doomed. I need to go and hold him back." After saying this, he chased after Ji-yu Yi and Ji-yu Seong, heading toward their courtyard. Yu Fu had been planning to return to her room and happened to see Jiyu Juji walking out. During the past few days, he had been frequently going out to see Yin Jiao. She knew about this. She had also heard Jiyu Wenqing say that Jiyu Juji and Yin Jiao often met up at Yushan Building. Second brother, are you going to Yushan Building? That's right. Jiyu Juji laughed, and his brow slightly twitched. Is that the reason that you gave him that pile of medicine? Are you worried that Yin Shuo will try to deal with third brother in the same way that he tried to deal with eldest brother? Yu Fu did not speak. On their previous outing to save Jiyu Shubai in Changju, it was the two of them who had gone together. He understood just how worried Yu Fu had been. He gently tapped Yu Fu on the head. Don't worry. Yin Shuo wants to cause the collapse of Marquis Gu's manor in court. It's not something that can be done by simply killing someone. If it was eldest brother, he might try to commit to the assassination, but he won't do it with third brother. Why is it that he would do it if it was eldest brother but not if it's someone else? Could it be because eldest brother is the heir to Marquis Gu's manor? But even without this heir, Marquis Gu's manor had 5 other sons. There would no shortage of possible replacement heirs. This would not pose a threat to Marquis Gu's manor's lineage. Yu Fu was puzzled, which caused Jiyu Juji to freeze. In the end, she was still young and did not have a thorough understanding of romantic feelings. If not for that, she should have been able to tell that the reason that Yin Shuo wanted Jiyu Shubai's life was none other than her. Chapter 234 Love Rivals Meet, Part 1, Second Young Sir. Jiyu Juji arrived outside a private room on the 3rd floor, and a joyous voice came from inside. They had arranged to meet an hour before noon, and he himself was not late, so why had Yin Jiao come early? Normally, for the sake of considering feminine restraint, she would come later than Jiyu Juji. Yin Jiao came out to receive Jiyu Juji, a rarely seen look of joy shining through the reserved feminine bearing. Upon seeing the girl next to Jiyu Juji, that smile immediately froze. Princess. She bowed in salute, and she immediately became stiff. Yu Fu did not know about the relationship between her and Jiyu Juji and said with a smile, second brother's friend is my friend. Young Miss Yin, there's no need to be so courteous. It's fine to address me in the same way as before. There was nothing wrong with what she had said. Yu Fu had also said the same thing to Yu Guan. To Yin Jiao, however, this sounded a little unpleasant. His friends are your friends. You clearly rejected him, so why have you come with him to see me? Jiyu Juji said, this restaurant can be considered one of Yu Fu's businesses, and she wanted to come and take a look, so I decided to bring her along. Yu Fu heard that young Miss Yin and I had an arrangement, so she just came to greet you. She will be going to see Yu Guan and check up on some things. I fear that she will not have any time for us. So she just happened to be tagging along. Yin Jiao could not help but feel ashamed of her earlier thoughts. Many thanks, young Miss Yu Fu. Since that's the case, I will not get in the way of your main matters. Young Miss Yin, please take your time and try various dishes. Fourth brother said that Yu Guan put a great deal of effort into them. I will be leaving first. Second brother must take good care of young Miss Yin. Don't worry. Yarolan helped Yu Fu down the stairs, and Yin Jiao watched her parting figure in a daze. She then looked over at Jiyu Juji. He did not appear to be heartbroken. He did not look like someone who had confessed and been rejected. What was going on? Was it that he did not like Yu Fu that much, to begin with, or was he being considerate of Jiyu Huijiang and Jiyu Shubai's feelings and started thinking of Yu Fu as a little sister again? For a while, she could not figure it out. Jiyu Juji raised his hand. Young Miss Yin, let's go inside. Yu Fu descended the stairs and saw Yu Guan leading a woman holding a peeper inside. She looked extremely familiar. Prin. Young miss, you came? Yu Guan stepped forward first and cupped his hands. I have been looking forward to young miss' arrival. Previously, it had not been tidied up, so I did not dare to invite young miss. Now that things have gotten better, I have been looking forward to young miss' arrival. He had become a bit thinner but was in much better spirits. He was smiling more and had the bearing of a shopkeeper. While speaking, he turned to introduce Yu Fu. This is Miss Yaro Yu, whom I have invited to come and perform. I heard that she was familiar with people from the manor and was skilled with the pipa. Miss Yarrow Yu, this is." Before he could finish speaking, Yarrow Yu stepped forward with her pipa and bowed. "Greetings, Princess." Yu Guan was shocked and said, "So Miss Yarrow Yu has met the young miss before?" "I previously met Miss Yarrow Yu with second brother. I also heard her play a song while riding a boat. It was quite pleasant. After that, I heard her play at Westlake, but I did not see her then." Yu Fu explained to Yu Guan and carefully observed Yarrow Yu. Her face was pale and looked sickly, but it was covered up with makeup. "Miss, there's no need to be so distant. It's fine to just address me as you did before." Yarrow Yu nodded slightly. Compared to her previous tender demeanor, there was now much more anxiety. Yu Guan brought out Yushan Building's goods and financial records, carefully explaining all of them to Yu Fu. Yu Fu smiled but did not say anything. Listening to him talk, it was as if he was a completely different person from before. "Where have you hidden Yu Guan? The Yu Guan that I know was not like this. Are you wearing a lifelike mask?" Yu Guan was stunned before realizing that Yu Fu was joking. He was a little embarrassed. He said, "Young miss, don't make fun of me. If not for young miss coming up with the idea, and providing money and people to help me, how could Yushan Building do this well? This is young miss business. I am just helping young miss manage it and do not dare to claim credit." "Not at all," Yu Fu said, "this is your business. I only lent you all of those things. The money and people were provided by eldest brother. My name was also lent to you for the sake of business. As long as you promise me that you will not charge me when I come for a meal." While she joked, she cleanly separated herself from Yushan Building, allowing Yu Guan to truly become the owner. Yu Guan anxiously said, "Of course, this isn't just for young miss. If people from Marquis Gu's manor come, this would also be true." "Right, I plan on changing my name. This name is an offense to young miss and is not suited to being used." "There's no need. I have never worried about such things." Yu Fu spoke freely and heard the sound of the pipa come from the front, saying, "Come, let's go and watch Yarrow Yu's performance." Chapter 235 Mournful Song and Snapped String, Part 2. In the capital's love scene, Yarrow Yu was quite well known. Not only was it because of her skill with the pipa, but it was also because everyone knew that she was someone protected by Gu Juji. But recently, they had heard that Gu Juji had cut ties with her, and she had even shut herself in and fallen ill over that. Looking at her today, though she was a bit thinner, she did not look like she had been so ill that she could not get up. The sound of the pipa rose with the sound of a mournful tune, and Yu Guan immediately furrowed his brow. Yu Fu was walking in front and turned back to say, "What's wrong? I clearly told Miss Yarrow Yu to play a joyous song, so why has she played such a sad song?" Yu Guan did not understand pipa songs and could only hear the sadness. He did not recognize what song this was, but Yu Fu could tell that it was longing. She had played it before at Westlake. Inside the private room on the third floor, the window that was opened just a crack was pushed open even more. The elegant and slender hand of a female appeared behind the window, and Yin Ji Yarrow poked her head out to look at the girl playing the pipa below. Yarrow Yu, she had heard this name before. She was Gu Joga's confidant. She used to be. Holding the pipa on her lap, she sat on the stage with a large crowd gathered around, completely entranced by the sound of her pipa. The crowd gathered around and cheered endlessly. However, there was not the slightest hint of a smile on her face. Thin, weak, anxious, and pale from sickness, Yin Ji Yarrow looked at Yarrow Yu and felt as if she was looking at a past version of herself. She had a very good understanding of how Yarrow Yu felt. "Second young sir, she came for you." Yin Ji Yarrow did not close the window. She just turned her head to look at Gu Juji, and the latter subconsciously picked up a cup of wine and brought it to his lips before putting it back down. In the end, he picked up a cup of tea. "You're overthinking it. It must be that Yu Guan knew that she has some connection to Marquis Gu's manor, thus he invited her to come and perform. Yushan Building and Marquis Gu's manor are connected in many ways. That's why Yarrow Yu was willing to do this for him. This was a personal matter between Yu Guan and Yarrow Yu. It was completely unrelated to him. Yin Jiaro, however, pointed down, "Come here and take a look. You will understand." Below, Yu Fu and Yu Guan chose to sit in the front row, casually sitting with the rest of the crowd. Jiyu Juji walked over and looked in the direction that Yin Jiaro was pointing. Was that Yarou Yu? She was wearing a large spring dress and had bright red lipstick on. Others might not be able to tell that she had become thinner. Jiyu Juji knew better than anyone else. He furrowed his brow and did not know what he should say. Jiaro really admires Miss Yarou Yu's devoted love for second young sir. She reflected on herself. She did not share Yarou Yu's deep affection, and she was burdened with a secret that she could not even share. Jiyu Juji did not pick up on the hidden meaning behind her words. A devoted love is only good if it's for the right person. I already explained things to her, but I don't know why she continues to insist on pursuing such a bitter path. In his mind, Yarou Yu was not like this. She had been used by others before, suddenly appearing when everyone from Marquis Gu's manor was admiring Westlake. After that event, she quickly came to an understanding. She had always been understanding and knew that there would be no chance for the two of them to be together. That was why they remained friends and lived in the moment. Yin Jiaro smiled bitterly, "Longing for you, but you remain in Chang'an. Second young sir, don't believe a woman's words. You say that you've talked it through and that she understands, but that does not mean that she truly could just give up. If a scholar falls in love, there may be hope of recovery. If a woman falls in love, they will never be able to escape. That's right, how about a more joyous song? The spring atmosphere outside is quite nice, so how about a song about the spring wind?" The song came to an end, and Yarou Yu slightly looked up before starting to play once more. In an instant, Yu Guan's expression turned very ugly. He was extremely familiar with this song. Was this not Peony Pavilion, which he frequently performed? This was a song of great sorrow. It was even more emotional than longing, adding in the sorrow of parting and never meeting again. In an instant, the guests down below started causing a stir. "What's going on? Why are you playing a song about someone dying? You aren't letting us enjoy our meals." Hong Zui and Lu Xiu hastily came in from the backyard and did their best to placate the angry guests. On the stage, Yarou Yu's eyes did not wander. It was as if she was the only person in her world. As her fingers continued to dance, the melancholic sound filling the air. Twang with the mournful sound of a string snapping, the guests suddenly fell quiet and looked up at the stage. Bright red drops of blood were dripping from the tips of Yarou Yu's elegant fingers. Chapter 236 Even if I am against the world, I will bravely advance. Part 3. The situation Yushan building was quite polarized. The lower floors were warm and toasty, while the upper floors were chilly. There were quite a few unhappy guests because of the song that Yarou Yu had just played, thus Yu Guan gave every table a plate of the new signature dish. This made everyone quite happy. It was not a result of getting something for free. Instead, it was a result of Yushan Building's new signature dish not yet being available to the general public. For them to have been able to try it first, it's natural that they would be happy. The situation on the third floor was quite bad. At an old-fashioned square table, there were 4 people seated. Yu Fu sat across from Jiyu Juji with Yin Jiaro to her left and Yarou Yu to her right. Fortunately, Yu Guan was busy taking care of the guests below. If he was present, he would definitely have wanted to voice his grievances. In truth, Yu Fu really wanted to do the same right now. That, as soon as she opened her mouth, the other 3 turned to look at her. "I'm a little hungry, but the 3 of you don't seem to be in the mood to eat. I will go down and eat something before coming back. I won't get in the way of your conversation." Just as she stood up, the door was pushed open, and Yu Guan personally arrived with the manager to deliver some food. Come, my dear noble guests. Please try the new signature dish that I tasked the chef with developing. If everyone could provide their opinions, that would be even better." Yu Guan single-mindedly spoke while placing the dishes on the table, as Yu Fu shot a glare at him. If not for his sudden appearance, she would have successfully gotten away. Yu Guan, who was suddenly glared at for no valid reason, suddenly realized what sort of atmosphere existed inside the room. "Ah, Please take your time enjoying them. If you need anything, just send someone to call me. I will be going first. Yu Guan hastily left, heartlessly abandoning Yu Fu. The four looked around awkwardly. This was the first time in Yu Fu's life that she had ever encountered such an awkward situation and did not know what to do. She lowered her head and fiddled with her nails, pretending to not exist. Yu Fu, didn't you say that you were hungry? Have some soup to warm your belly. Jiu Juji suddenly spoke up and picked up the soup ladle from the table and ladled some soup for Yu Fu. The porcelain bowl was brought over to Yu Fu, but she did not dare receive it. Of the three girls present, the other two girls had special feelings for Jiu Juji, yet he only ladled soup for her. Did he think that things were not messy enough? Yu Fu picked up her chopsticks and picked up some stir-fried lily. I'm not that thirsty. Ha ha ha, Jiu Juji did not pull back his hand and just looked at her. The other two girls were also looking closely at her. Yu Fu had no choice but to receive the bowl but hesitantly glanced at Yin Jiao and Yarrow Yu while doing so. In the end, she pushed the bowl of soup over to Yarrow Yu. Miss Yarrow Yu, you still haven't recovered from your illness, and you have gotten so thin. Drink a bit of soup to fill your stomach a little and don't starve yourself. She then quickly ladled some more soup and brought it over to Yin Jiao. Young Miss Yin has also become extremely thin. Quickly eat something and don't just starve yourself. Yu Fu was not fat, and her body had become more slender since growing taller. Her figure was now just right. Compared to the two thin and fragile-looking girls, she did not look thin at all. That was why she did her best to serve the other two first. Jiu Juji helplessly picked up the ladle once more and ladled another bowl for Yu Fu. You are also extremely thin. Eat and stop giving way to others. The two girls quickly exchanged a look. This was bad. She was the only one to personally receive a bowl of soup from Jiu Juji. She had once again become the leader. Ah, Yu Fu has a sturdy body. It's fine for her to drink a bit faster. Yu Fu, have you finished? If you have, cough. Yarrow Yu suddenly covered her mouth and started coughing, her face alternating between red and white. With her other hand, she held her chest, and she looked to be in a lot of pain. Yarrow Yu. Jiu Juji saw this and stepped forward, but Yarrow Yu waved her hand. It's fine. I just caught a bit of a cold. If you were able to let go just a little, things would not be this bad. I have already said everything that needs to be said to make things clear, so why are you still so obsessed? She had deliberately played the sorrowful song today, and Jiu Juji was able to hear the despair in her song. She clearly knew that her closest confidant would be able to hear her despair. Tears appeared in Yarrow Yu's eyes, as she looked over at Yin Jiao. I will obsess over what I want. There's no need for second young sir to worry about it. When it comes to love, it occurs as naturally as people live and die. Even in the face of millions of people, I will bravely press on. Yin Jiao's heart trembled, and a feeling that never existed before welled up. She knew that Yu Fu had no feelings for Jiu Juji, and Jiu Juji would eventually give up on his sister-in-law. But it was different with Yarrow Yu. When it came to such an infatuated girl, who wholeheartedly loved Jiu Juji, would he really be able to remain aloof? Chapter 237 Tangled for Life, Part 4, Doctor, I'll trouble you with treating her. You must be sure to cure her. If there are any medicines that you need, just go to Yushan Building and look for shopkeeper Yu Guan. After escorting Yarrow Yu back to her small residence and personally seeking out a doctor to treat her, Jiu Juji finally felt at ease. Yarrow Yu lay in bed, as a maidservant wiped her face. After her makeup was washed off, her pale face made her look particularly pitiful. Jiu Joga's heart trembled. He did not have any romantic feelings for her. He only thought of her as a confidant, but he felt quite saddened from seeing her sick. The doctor replied, Young sir, don't worry. This girl only caught a cold. There aren't any major problems. It's just that she's been sick for a long time that her condition looks so horrifying. She will definitely recover from her illness after a month of treatment. Thank you, doctor. Jiu Juji helped tuck in a corner of her blanket. Take care and properly recover from this illness and don't think about too much. If you're lacking anything, Just have the maidservant fetch it for you. I will take care of things with Yu Guan, so there's no need to feel embarrassed. Yarrow Yu silently nodded, then reached up to point toward the window and said, "Second young sir should go. Young Miss Yin is waiting for you below." Jiyu Joga's brow twitched, and he walked over to the window. Sure enough, he saw Yin Jiarou standing downstairs with her maidservant. The daughter of a noble family even dared to come to a place where many people gathered in a chaotic mess. "How did you know that she was below?" "I had a feeling." Yarrow Yu placed her hand on her chest and faintly smiled. "It seems that my intuition is quite good." Jiyu Juji walked down the stairs. Yin Jiarou was growing frantic from the wait, and it was as if she had seen her savior when she saw him. Yes, a savior. For the first time, she realized just how heartbroken she would feel if Jiyu Juji ended up with some other girl. "Second young sir, what have you come here for? It's almost dark. Are you not afraid of something happening?" She was immediately given a lecture when they met up. More and more, he stopped treating her as less of a stranger. Yin Jiarou did not get angry. Instead, she smiled. "I have something very important to tell you. I have to tell you today, and I don't want to wait even a moment." "Something very important." Jiyu Juji seemed to realize what it was. "Let's not stand here. Let's go and find some place to sit." At the window on the second floor, Yarrow Yu watched the two people below depart. She smiled weakly. "I also have a feeling that you two will be entangled for a lifetime." Returning to the manor, Jiyu Shubai and Yu Fu came out to meet him. Just looking at his face, Yu Fu knew that her guess had been correct. The atmosphere in the private room was too weird. Yarrow Yu's collapse pushed the situation to the limit. Yin Jiarou could not sit still after seeing Jiyu Juji carry Yarrow Yu away. She watched from the third-floor window, and just after Jiyu Juji left, she immediately followed. These three really were stuck in an unfortunate cycle. "Second brother, is Yarrow Yu all right?" Jiyu Juji sighed. "Eldest brother, don't think of her as being so innocent. Do you know why Yin Shuo allowed her to meet me so often? At first, I thought that he just wanted to use this opportunity to confuse us by having her be friendly. It was only after today, when Yin Jiarou told me the truth, that I found out that she was being sent out by Yin Shuo as a chess piece." "What? She even told you that?" Jiyu Juji looked at Jiyu Shubai in disbelief. "Eldest brother already knew this?" "It was just a suspicion. It can't be considered knowing it. You have met her so many times. Could it be that you never had any suspicions?" It was not that Jiyu Juji did not have his suspicions. It was that he was bewildered by Yin Jiarou's sincerity. More importantly, her coming clean today was enough to counteract the deception. "Father, eldest brother, do you know what Yin Shuo wanted her to find out from me?" Jiyu Joga's gaze turned to Yu Fu, and everything immediately became clear. Yin Jiarou had been ordered by her father and brother to probe Jiyu Juji about Yu Fu's identity, and Jiyu Juji had gotten close to Yin Jiarou to learn about the identity of her birth mother. The two approached each other with their own goals in mind, but they treated each other sincerely. Yu Fu suddenly recalled what Jiyu Juji had said before they went out. He said that nothing would happen to third brother, but if it was eldest brother, Yin Shuo would want to take his life. Could it be that the previous attempted assassination in Chengdu was also because of her? Chapter 238 Routine Investigation, Part 5, Third Young Sir, there is some shade here. How about we stop here to rest? The group led by Jiyu Hanmo rode west without rest until they arrived at the Lesser Zhu Pass, near Zhuguan. It was then that the soldiers were unable to continue on. The spring sun was quite warm, and they were soaked in sweat from riding this entire time. Their clothes were thoroughly soaked from their sweat. Seeing a small patch of shade provided by the small forest, they were extremely eager to stop and get a drink of water to cool down. Jiyu Hanmo brought his hand up to provide shade for his eyes and carefully looked around the small forest. There were no other places to rest, thus he said, "All right, but do not enter the forest. We will rest out the forest's outskirts." Up to their arrival at the Lesser Zhu Pass, there had been no news from the border. It was clear that Western Kuan had not made any movements, Thus they were not in any rush. Jiyu Hanmo removed the bundle from his horse's back. Boil these medicinal herbs, then add the brewed result to our comrades' waterskins. A soldier happily received it. Young Miss Yu Fu's medicines really are amazing. Whenever I take them, I feel very at ease. Even the comrades who hate drinking water like drinking this. Unlike the usual medicines that were bitter, these medicinal herbs tasted more like tea and had a stronger taste than water. Jiyu Hanmo smiled and said, Yu Fu knows that we will be traveling a great distance and will be tired, thus she specially told me to bring them along. Quickly take them and boil them. The soldiers started a fire, but Jiyu Hanmo did not rest. Instead, he walked around the edge of the forest and looked around. There was nothing strange in the forest. They had already arrived at the Lesser Zhu Pass. Why was there still nothing abnormal? He seemed to have something on his mind, and he looked back in the direction that they had come from. He thought to himself that if that person did not act now, they would arrive at Zhuguan. The military camp at Zhuguan had 50,000 troops from the Jiyu family's army. Once they arrived, it would be too late for the enemy to act. A smoke trail rose from the fire, and a soldier stationed on Zhuguan's city wall saw the smoke in the distance. With a smile, he joked with his patrol partner, "Hey, look over at the forest. Is there someone roasting a pheasant?" The other person quietly scolded him, "Keep it down. All you think about is pheasant. Where would we even find pheasants around here? Just finding a rabbit to roast would be considered fortunate." He then turned to take a look, as a middle-aged man in court clothes quietly stood behind them and listened to their conversation. He had a large belly and wore a fourth-rank official's court cap with a sapphire inlaid in it. Was this not the prefect of Zhuguan? In Eastern Ling, regardless of whether it was the central region or anywhere else, military and political affairs were separate. This was especially true in border cities, where fighting was common. The military had even more power than civil officials. Even with this being the case, the two soldiers adhered to the rules and saluted the prefect. "Lord Prefect, what have you come here for?" The fat prefect maintained his smile. "This official just heard you two say that someone is roasting a pheasant in the forest. A few days earlier, the special envoy from Western Kuan just passed through to escort their princess to the capital. As a city on the border, we must be extra vigilant. Go and take a look at who is roasting pheasants in the forest. Bring a few more people with you." The two soldiers looked at each other. It was a passerby stopping in the forest for a break. Who cared whether he was roasting a pheasant or a wild rabbit? How was it something for the soldiers to concern themselves with? Also, they were clearly coming from the middle of the country and not from Western Kuan. What was he so nervous about? This was the first time that Jiyu Hanmo had come to the border on his own. In the past, he had come with his father and older brothers. He truly did not know who led the troops of the Lesser Zhu Pass. He did not have much of an impression of Shuju, so he must not be of a very high rank. His gaze landed on the fire that had been used to boil the medicine and the faint trail of smoke that rose from it. Western Kuan's special envoy just passed through here. It's possible that they are on high alert and came to investigate after seeing our numbers. Do not expose my identity when they come. Just say that we are part of the Jiyu family's army and must get to Zhuguan. Yes, third young sir. The handful of soldiers from Lesser Zhu Pass arrived and saw the group of 20 strong men seated under the shade of the trees. For a moment, they were afraid to step forward. Looking carefully, although they were wearing informal clothes, they had a military bearing. They had even more killing intent than they did. This sort of bearing made it immediately clear that they were part of the military. The soldiers who came to investigate cupped their hands. "We are soldiers stationed at the Lesser Zhu Pass and have come to investigate." "Who are you?" Chapter 239 Establish a Cabinet, Part 1. The report that was rushed from the Lesser Zhu Pass to the capital nearly caused Emperor Ning's heart to nearly stop. The princess for the political marriage had not yet arrived, yet Western Kuan's people could no longer sit still. No, in that case, the report would come from Zhuguan, not Lesser Zhu Pass. After opening the report and carefully reading through it, he finally calmed down and felt a little embarrassed. The report had come from the prefect of Lesser Zhu Pass. It said that he had seen the third young sir of the Jiyu family lead 20 soldiers through the city and was heading toward Zhuguan. This came just as the situation between Western Kuan and Eastern Ling was improving, so the prefect was worried that Jiyu Hanmo would provoke a war. Unfortunately, the prefect of Lesser Zhu Pass was not a part of the Jiyu family army. With great effort, he finally managed to have soldiers go to Zhuguan to bring the Jiyu family's general to negotiate. Jiyu Hanmo's identity could no longer be kept hidden. His guess was correct. Someone wanted to use this war to implicate Marquis Gu's manor. Even someone as insignificant as the lowly prefect of Lesser Zhu Pass had been bought. Take a look at this. Look at all of it. Jiyu Hanmo would provoke a war. When has someone from my Eastern Ling ever provoked a war? When has it ever not been started by Western Kuan? Emperor Ning angrily threw the report on the ground. Unreasonable. Something so insignificant was rushed to the capital. We thought that Western Kuan had launched their invasion. It's just the third young sir of the Jiyu family leading a few soldiers to Zhuguan. Is this worth sending a report? Jiyu Hanmo went to Zhuguan? Why did the court not know anything about this? Everyone exchanged looks, then turned to look at Jiyu Huijiang's reaction. The latter looked the same as usual. If the sky collapsed, Lord Marquis Jiyu would hold it up. He would never be flustered. Like everyone else, Yin Shuo looked over at Jiyu Huijiang and slightly furrowed his brow. He then slowly looked away. Emperor Ning was not shocked, and Jiyu Huijiang did not look shaken. Could it be they had agreed on sending Jiyu Hanmo to Zhuguan beforehand? Impossible. It was precisely because Jiyu Huijiang had to secret send Jiyu Hanmo out that a spy like Qi Ting had to be executed with Qi Ju bringing her last meal. Only then could she get a chance to come to him when the guards had been dismissed. Ah! Your Majesty, may I ask if the contents of your private discussion with Lord Marquis Jiyu about military affairs can be announced? Was the third young sir going to Zhuguan Lord Marquis Gu's order, or was it your Majesty's order? The officials paused for a moment, as some were wondering the same thing. Emperor Ning turned up his nose and snorted. Naturally, it was our order. Some people feel that Lord Marquis Jiyu has obtained a high rank and still covets more power, thus every move that he makes must be investigated. Even the lowly prefect of Lesser Zhu Pass dares to set his sights on Marquis Gu's manor, mobilizing so many people to report that Jiyu Hanmo went to Zhuguan. Whoever gave these instructions, step forward this instant. He fiercely slammed his desk, his chest rising and falling rapidly in anger. Eunuch Gao hastily stepped forward to help ease his breathing. He was the one who gave the order to Jiyu Hanmo. Yin Shuo hid his face in the shadows, as a murderous look flashed through his eyes. Very well, he had fallen for a scheme once more. Emperor Ning pushed his hand away. There's no need to worry about us. We have been treated by the deity of medicine. We don't dare say that we will live into our 80s like Mother Empress Dowager, but 60 or 70 should be fine. We won't die so soon. The officials in court dropped to their knees. They knew that Emperor Ning was furious, feeling that it was worth mentioning his mortality. The eldest prince and second prince also kneeled, their expressions particularly ugly. Regardless of who it was, neither hoped that Emperor Ning would live too long. The officials in court felt endangered and looked around at each other, wondering if they were the ones who tried to plot against Marquis Jiyu. They were also trying to distance themselves from this matter. Finally, someone turned their eyes on Yin Shuo. The previous prime minister was ousted because he had attempted to have Marquis Gu's heir assassinated. Could it be that Yin Shuo wanted to get revenge? No, though he and Yin Yang were father and son, their personalities were completely different. He should not be so foolish. Emperor Ning cleared his throat. We believe that the court's administration needs to be changed. We feel that a cabinet needs to be established to discuss politics. As for the positions, they shall temporarily remain the same. Yin Shuo suddenly raised his head. Since ancient times, the position of cabinet minister was on the same level as the prime minister. Dynasties that had cabinets did not have prime ministers. Emperor Ning announcing this was meant to reduce his power, and it expressed his displeasure with him. He no longer trusted him. Chapter 240 So What If Others Find Out? Part 2, Eldest Brother, How Are Things on Third Brother's Side? Jiyu Shubai walked out from the outer study, and everyone was waiting for him to deliver the news. Don't worry. With his identity out in the open, it's obvious that the people of Lesser Zhu Pass won't dare to trouble him. Yin Shuo's plan this time was much smarter. Unfortunately, His Majesty will become more and more suspicious of him. Yu Fu said, I heard that His Majesty will be establishing a cabinet, so the position of Prime Minister will be getting removed soon, right? Jiyu Shubai laughed and said, For now, it won't be, but it won't take long. In the past, His Majesty has trusted him too much, granting him the position of Prime Minister at such a young age. He even engaged his beloved daughter to him. The greater the expectations, the greater the disappointment. Jiyu Yi crinkled his nose. Right. He thinks that His Majesty is still suspicious of our Marquis Gu's manner and that he can just provoke us with any sort of trick. He is completely clueless. His Majesty looks at us completely differently now. After saying this, he delightedly looked at Yu Fu. Our manor helped raise a princess for His Majesty. Is this something that just any family can do? Whenever His Majesty sees Yu Fu, he will think of the deity of medicine, and when he thinks of the deity of medicine, he will remember who saved his life. How could he still be suspicious of us? You're the only one who has so much to say. Jiyu Xiong helplessly glanced at him. Don't mention His Majesty's life so lightly. Not even Yu Fu is acting smug, so what are you getting smug for? I am also Yu Fu's brother. If she won't act smug, I'll act smug for her. Is that not fine? Yu Fu snorted. His Majesty's gratitude is directed to Master and the head general. It's none of my business. I won't go acting smug. Hearing them joke around, Jiyu Shubai shook his head and laughed. Suddenly, he saw Qi Ju standing nearby and looking over. Facing Jiyu Shubai's gaze, he cautiously retracted his gaze. Jiyu Shubai walked over to him on his own and saw that Qi Ju had something that he was wanting to say. Steward Qi, do you want me to help you save Qi Ting? No, 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 this servant does not dare. Qi Ju wrung his hands. When eldest young sir allowed this servant to see Qi Ting, this servant knew that whether she lived or died would depend on her own efforts. Since she so fervently refused to repent, this servant does not even dare to think of asking for her to be saved. If Qi Ting did not secretly sneak out of the prison on that night, even if she had simply run out and found a place to hide, he knew that Lord Marquis and the eldest young sir would not take her life. Yet she decided to run away to Yin Shuo with knowledge of Jiyu Hanmo heading to the border. She had completely cut off her own chance at survival. There was no saving someone who sought their own destruction. Jiyu Shubai thought for a moment, I will send some people to the Prime Minister's manor to keep an eye out. Once they discover Qi Ting, I will have them bring her back. When he mentioned bringing her back, it naturally meant that she would not be coming back alive. She would be dead. Qi Ju closed his eyes. Many thanks, eldest young sir. It's just that my father is much too old, so I truly don't dare tell him about this. Eldest young sir, please don't tell him about this. After saying this, his knees bent, and he was about to kneel. Jiyu Shubai stopped him. Let's not talk about this. Qi Ting is Qi Ting, and you are you. You have loyally served the manor for many decades. Father has seen it, and I have seen it. Qi Ju bowed deeply and briskly left. Pay a thought for a bit, young miss, don't worry. This servant feels that second young sir is not that sort of person. Though there are many girls who like him, he is not the type to be inconsistent with his love. Think about Miss Yarrow Yu. Even though she clearly knows that second young sir does not like her, she still insists on being around him. With that sickly appearance, this servant truly can't stand the sight of it. Paya. Yin Jiao unhappily stopped her. You can't say it like that. Second young sir's friend is my friend. You must not talk about her behind her back. She should learn to be more magnanimous like Yu Fu. With Jiyu Joga's character, how could he like a vulgar and jealous girl? She must not get jealous of Yu Fu. On the contrary, she needed to treat her well. Yes, this servant recognizes her mistake. Paya thought that Yin Jiao were romantic rivals and that they would find each other unpleasant. Who knew that her own young miss would be so magnanimous? In the end, I still feel a little uneasy. Paya, come with me to the front study to see eldest brother. I heard that His Majesty plans to establish a cabinet, so eldest brother will surely be feeling uneasy. Chapter 241 Dying with Grievances, Part 3. In the darkness at dusk, it suddenly started raining. Yin Jiaro led Paya out of the backyard and stopped at a pavilion. The timing of this rain is no coincidence. Paya, go back and fetch an umbrella. Yes, young miss, wait here. This servant will return immediately. The stone table and stone chair in the middle of the pavilion were cold. She reached out to feel it but decided to just watch the rain while remaining standing. The spring rain fell on the plantain leaves, while the cherries growing nearby glimmered from the rain, creating a beautiful scene. The cherries are red and plantains are green. The passage of time easily forgets the existence of man. I don't know who wrote this poem, but it is truly melancholic. She muttered to herself and suddenly saw someone moving behind the plantain trees. 2 servants were carrying a bamboo rack, suspiciously looking all around. A white cloth covered the bamboo rack, and it was hard to tell what was inside, but her intuition told her that it was nothing good. Stop. The 2 people sneaking around were told to stop and were given a fright. It was only now that they noticed that someone was in the pavilion. Young miss. Yin Jiaro had a frail figure, and it was getting dark, thus they did not immediately see her. If they had seen her earlier, they would not have chosen this route. This was not good. They had been discovered. Let me see what you're carrying. She walked out into the rain, and the 2 servants carrying the bamboo rack backed up. Young miss, the young master instructed us to do this. Don't pay it any mind. This is dirty, and it's not something you can look at. Young miss. Paya returned with the umbrella. Seeing her standing in the rain, she hastily brought the umbrella over to provide cover. Young miss, be careful not to catch a cold. What's this? Yin Jiaro pursed her lips. I don't know what this dirty thing is. Since they don't want to let me take a look, make sure you hide it properly. Since you've passed by in front of me, I absolutely want to see. While the 2 were not paying attention, she rushed forward and pulled away the white cloth. A girl in brightly colored clothes was laying beneath the cloth. Her face was blue and purple, and her eyes were wide. Blood slowly flowed from her nose and mouth. Paya looked carefully, then rushed to cover Yin Jiaro's eyes. Young miss, don't look. It's a dead person. It was too late. She had already seen it. Yin Jiaro was frightened by the sight of the corpse and turned pale, any sign of color quickly disappearing from her lips. In a panic, she retreated a few steps into the rain. Who is this? Why would Yin Shaw want to kill this girl? It was a girl whom she had never seen before. She did not look like a maidservant from the manor. Who was she? The 2 servants hastily rushed to place the white cloth back in place. Young miss, this girl betrayed the young master. She's the one who angered the young master. Don't ask too much about this dirty thing. If the young master found out, we would be forced out. The 2 were also a little panicked. They were meant to secretly dispose of the corpse. Seeing that it was raining, they thought that they would not run into anyone, and that was why they chose to take a more direct path. Who knew that as soon as they came out, they would happen to run into Yin Jiao. The 2 hastily picked the bamboo rack back up and headed toward the manor's entrance. Yin Jiao stood in the rain in shock and did not recover for quite some time. For the first time in her life, she had seen a corpse, and the death had been so brutal. Young miss, you've become completely soaked. How about we go back to your room first and change into some new clothes before looking for the young master? No, I can't go and look for eldest brother. The driver said a few words, then quickly returned to the carriage and left. He did not even notice that the vegetable vendor's cart had parked behind him. After he left, 2 people dressed as vegetable vendors walked forward and removed their hats. One was Yang Zheng, and the other was Qi Ju. Steward Qi, go and take a look. The corpse wrapped in a white cloth was haphazardly laying on the ground. Qi Ju wiped his eyes, as the tears mixed with the rain. He tried to take a step forward, as an indescribable look of sorrow appeared on his face. In the end, he stepped forward and lifted the white cloth. The corpse under the white cloth was bleeding from every opening on the head. She had died in an unclear manner. It's her. It's my Tinga. Young Sir Yang, thank you for allowing father and daughter to see each other one last time. He wiped away the blood from Chi Ting's face, then carried her corpse over to the vegetable cart. Yang Zheng gave him a hand, then saw the wild dogs watching from the side before disappearing back into the woods. Steward Chi, don't be so courteous. The young general promised to give her a proper burial. When the Qingming festival arrives in a few days, you will be able to burn some joss paper for her to express your fatherly love. He used food baskets to cover Chi Ting's corpse before turning the carriage around. Chapter 242 Two Joyous Events, Part 4. Emperor Ning initially intended to engage the princess sent for the political marriage by Western Kuan to the eldest prince. The two countries had been at war for many years, and this was their first time establishing any diplomatic ties. Emperor Ning wanted to show his sincerity by having his eldest son shoulder the burden. After finding out Western Kuan's strategy, he quickly lost interest. He haphazardly engaged the princess to a normal son of the imperial family. The special envoy from Western Kuan did not seem to mind upon hearing this. This princess was born from a concubine, and Emperor Kuan had her come for a political marriage for the sake of pretending to be friendly. After she was married, nobody cared whether she lived well or not. The princess from Western Kuan is on her way and will arrive in the capital in 5 days' time. At that time, the imperial family will host a wedding banquet, so they decided to just have Yin Shuo and Princess Danyang's marriage at the same time. It would be two joyous events happening at the same time. It had been 2 months since Emperor Ning recovered from his illness, and his attitude toward the eldest prince and the second prince was slowly returning to normal. It was just that there was not as much trust or doting as before. Today, he deliberately called the two of them to the imperial study to discuss this matter. The eldest prince smiled and said, "Father Emperor has always been smart about expenditures. Hosting both of the imperial family's weddings together will allow for great savings. Moreover, Danyang is no longer young. Father Emperor is wise." Wise? What horseshit. If not for Emperor Ning losing faith in Yin Shuo, he would not have suddenly brought up establishing a cabinet. Would he still be considered wise? The second prince's expression was ugly. "Father Emperor, shouldn't Danyang's marriage be delayed? Western Kuan's special envoy and princess are coming to the capital. When that happens, there will be many matters to handle. With Danyang's marriage also taking place, would there not be the possibility of our Eastern Ling losing face? It would be nice it could be delayed. It would be best if it could delayed until Yin Shuo lost his position as prime minister. Like this, there would be no need for Princess Danyang to marry him. Danyang was his only little sister, so she had to marry the minister with the most power. How could she be married off to Yin Shuo, an official who had lost the emperor's trust? The eldest prince's brow twitched slightly, as he playfully smiled. "What's wrong, second brother? Before now, you very clearly wanted to rush Danyang's marriage. You seemed all too eager to have it happen as soon as possible. Now that Father Emperor wants her to get married, you are trying to delay it with all kinds of excuses. I truly can't understand it." Emperor Ning kept his head down and did not speak, listening to his two sons argue. The second prince hastily said, "Previously, there were few problems in court. Danyang is my younger sister, so it's natural that I would hope that she be able to get married to a worthy husband as soon as possible. But now that there is a situation in court, how can we neglect the country's important issues for the sake of familial feelings? Naturally, receiving Western Kuan's special envoy takes precedence. Has second brother not been listening to what Father Emperor has been saying? By conducting Danyang's wedding at the same time as Western Kuan's princess's wedding, it will not just save on the costs. It will also give a bit of face to the princess from Western Kuan. For her to be able to have her wedding take place at the same time as our Eastern Ling's princess's wedding is something that will elevate her. How can this be considered neglecting the country's important affairs? Eldest brother, those words. Enough, everyone shut up." Emperor Ning lifted his head and unhappily furrowed his brow. "Danyang is our daughter and your younger sister. That's why we sought you to discuss her marriage. It's not for the sake of allowing you two to argue to no end. Chengji, are you looking to place emphasis on the connection with Western Kuan, or are you looking down on Yin Shuo as a brother-in-law? The second prince froze, then quickly cupped his hands. Father Emperor has misunderstood. Son did not have such intentions. Prime Minister Yin is a young talent that is hard to find. How could Son possibly look down on him? The second prince instinctively refuted it, then spoke after thinking for a moment. Son did not just send gifts to Prime Minister Yin. Son also sent gifts to others, for example, Sister Yu Fu. Initially, Son wanted to send Father Emperor some gifts, but Father Emperor has not wanted to see us during this past little while, thus Son did not come. There are also gifts for eldest brother. I will have someone send them to the eldest prince's manor later. Oh, there's also something for me. The eldest prince laughed and said, second brother has always been generous with his gifts, unlike my poor maternal family, which is often strapped for money. But why is second brother wantonly sending out gifts to everyone? The second prince straightened his back and also smiled, saying, I have not seen Father Emperor much during this past little while, thus I have been reflecting on whether or not I have done anything wrong to make Father Emperor unhappy. I thought long and hard and felt that my usual actions are harsh and merciless. That's why I started giving out gifts to everyone. It was to make up for my past mistakes. He spoke as if he had attained enlightenment, and there were no holes in his story. For a while, the eldest prince did not know how to respond and simply let out a dry laugh. Emperor Ning nodded his head. For you to be able to realize where you are lacking, we are very pleased. Yin Shuo is your brother-in-law, and Yu Fu is your younger sister in name. If you can get a little closer, we can feel at ease. Then things will be set like this. The weddings for Danyang and Western Kuan's princess will be held together and will take place in half a month's time. One is a princess marrying to solidify relations, while the other is your little sister. Neither of you must slack off. Both of you will go to the Board of Rites to help out. The corner of the eldest prince's eyes squinted at the second prince, as he cupped his hands and smiled. Yes, Father Emperor. Chapter 243 Deal with the Spy, Part 5. Yin Shuo's position as Prime Minister is something that can be removed in an instant, so why must I still marry him? Princess Danyang stood up in anger, pointing at the second prince. You clearly know whom it is I love, yet you still want to sacrifice my happiness to win over Yin Shuo. Very well, if sacrificing my happiness means that you will succeed, I am fine with it. But you need to look at your own situation. Father Emperor announced that he would be establishing a cabinet in front of everyone. Do you think that the smarter ones are unable to realize that Yin Shuo has lost Father Emperor's favor? The second prince pulled her back to her seat. Shush, keep your voice down. He looked around outside the window and found that only Jenna, Princess Danyang's confidant, was standing guard outside. Could it be that I can't tell that Yin Shuo has lost Father Emperor's favor? But Father Emperor insists on marrying you to him. Even the date has been set. Father Emperor suspects that the matter of targeting Marquis Gu's manor might be related to Yin Shuo, but there is no evidence. How can he possibly change the marriage that he himself decided on? Father Emperor does not have evidence but wants to reduce Yin Shuo's influence in court. That's why I sent him those gifts to comfort him. Like this, after the cabinet is established, and the Prime Minister's position is rendered obsolete, nobody will say that Father Emperor is harsh and without mercy. Father Emperor really planned things out well. But what about me? Do I need to be the unlucky one who marries someone who is about to lose their influence? Before a girl gets married, she is tied to her father. Once she gets married, she is tied to her husband. Presently, all of her glory was a result of her father being the emperor of Eastern Ling. In the future, if her husband was someone without power or influence, others would not look up to her. She would be in an even worse situation than the young misses from normal noble families. No, she did not want that. Since she had spent one day as a princess born of the empress, she would always live a high and noble life. Danyang, calm down a little. Yin Shuo's current situation is indeed quite bad, but you need to consider your brother's situation too. Right now, Only with you obediently marrying Yin Shuo will Father Emperor not suspect me of creating a supportive faction to pursue my wishes. You must know that it was you who told me to bring up establishing a crown prince when Father Emperor was severely ill last time. Second brother, what do you mean by that? I did it with you in mind. Now, you want to place the blame for losing favor with Father Emperor on me? Moreover, you're not the only one to lose favor. Hasn't Ning Yijiao also lost favor? So how can you place the blame on me? The second prince suddenly fell silent. He thought for a long time, then furrowed his brow and said, I always felt that there was something strange about that. How did Father Emperor's illness get so bad? The deity of medicine refused to reveal what his condition was after treating him. Think about it. If it was just an illness, why would the deity of medicine refuse to say anything? Hearing him say this, Princess Danyang also remembered something. I remember that the deity of medicine said that he did not want to get involved in Eastern Ling's court affairs. When it came to Father Emperor's illness, nobody was allowed to ask him anything. That is to say, Father Emperor's illness was related to court affairs. The siblings exchanged a look and instantly reached a silent agreement. At that time, Imperial Consort Xian was the one who stayed by Father Emperor's side every day. She even used her status in the Imperial Harem to prevent other members of the Imperial Harem from going to visit Father Emperor. This was also to say that it was very likely that Imperial Consort Xian had done something to make Emperor Ning's condition worsen. Princess Danyang shook her head. If it was Ning Yijiao and Imperial Consort Xian working together in this, what was their goal? Could it be that they knew that Father Emperor was going to establish you as the crown prince, thus they decided to try and do something to take Father Emperor's life? No, this was clearly something that only Marquis Gu's manor and we knew. The second prince had not thought about Marquis Gu's manor for quite some time. It can't be them. Although I also do not like the idea of Marquis Gu wielding so much military power, even if he was biased toward Ning Yijiao, they would not work together to try and kill Father Emperor. Have you forgotten? The reason that the deity of medicine was willing to treat Father Emperor is that Marquis Gu kneeled. If Marquis Gu's manor was not responsible for the leak, that would mean, of the people in the palace who would plant a spy and had the ability to do so, aside from Imperial Consort Xian, who else was there? Princess Danyang sneered, very well, to actually dare to eavesdrop on what second brother and I were talking about. I wonder how your master gave you the nerve to do this. I can't be bothered to question her. Send her to Eunuch Gao to be interrogated. I want to see if she'll confess or not. Yes. The Imperial guards dragged her off, and Princess Danyang gave Jenna a look. You go with them and explain the situation to Eunuch Gao. Ask that he be especially thorough. Yes, this servant understands. Watching them leave, the second prince said, why send her to Eunuch Gao to be interrogated? When a palace servant does something wrong, there is a board to deal with them. Why bother telling old Eunuch Gao? Also, if Eunuch Gao tells Father Emperor about all of the complaints that you voiced earlier, how could that do any good? Second brother, do you think that my complaints will make Father Emperor angry, or do you think that Imperial Consort Xian planting a spy in my palace will make Father Emperor angry? This is especially true once Father Emperor knows that Imperial Consort Xian spied on the matter of establishing a crown prince. Chapter 244 Half of a Mandarin Duck, Part 1, in Qinghua Palace, Imperial Consort Xian sat next to the window and worked on an embroidery. The embroidery was a lifelike depiction of a mandarin duck. Mu Jin walked over with some colored thread. Which type of silk thread did your highness want? This servant found many types of silk thread in the warehouse and could not tell which one it was that you wanted. She simply brought all of the silk thread over to Imperial Consort Xian, and Imperial Consort Xian took a look at what she brought. It's this one, but it's been left sitting for a long time. The color is not too vibrant. Go and see if there is any new thread. If there isn't, send someone to request some more. Yes. This servant will immediately send someone out. Your Highness, don't rush with embroidering the mandarin duck. How about embroidering the ripples in the water first? When you finish, the new thread will have arrived. Imperial Consort Xian scolded her. Then why haven't you gone yet? Wasting your time here. Mu Jin retreated with a smile. She knew that Imperial Consort Xian was embroidering a pouch for Emperor Ning and was planning to fill it with fragrances for him during the Dragon Boat Festival. Between Emperor and Consort, their ages added up to almost 100, yet Imperial Consort Xian was still using such a loving image as Mandarin ducks. It was evident just how loving their relationship was. After a long period of time, Imperial Consort Xian heard the sound of Mu Jin depart then return. Did you bring it? The feathers on the Mandarin duck's torso must use this sort of golden silk thread. Other golden threads are too plain. The color just isn't right. Mu Jin did not make a sound. Imperial Consort Xian had her head down, and her neck was feeling sore. Lifting her head, she rubbed her neck and found that the person who had come was not Mu Jin. Your Majesty, why have you suddenly come? Emperor Ning stood alone at the entrance with only eunuch Gao behind him. He did not bring a single extra person with him. Imperial Consort Xian was a little flustered, but she forced herself to smile and receive him. Emperor Ning's gaze was inquisitive. We had nothing better to do and came to see what our beloved Imperial Consort was doing. It's nothing much. I was just in the middle of embroidering a pouch. When the Dragon Boat Festival comes around, I would fill it with some herbs to ward off poisons and ill omens. Ward off poisons and ill omens. When Emperor Ning heard these words, his eyes immediately became vigilant. The way that he looked at Imperial Consort Xian was completely different from before. Without any warning, he walked over to her side and grabbed a hold of her sleeve. We have been treated by the deity of medicine. Even if we do not ward off poison and ill omens, we should be fine. What does beloved consort think? Imperial Consort Xian's heart dropped. In the past, Jiyu Huijiang was the only person in court whom Emperor Ning dreaded, and that was for wielding great power. Now, it was completely reversed. Aside from Jiyu Huijiang, it seemed as though he was suspicious of everyone. He had given the eldest prince and the second prince the cold shoulder for quite some time, and today, he had come to say such a vague thing. Could it be that he knew something? Naturally. Your Majesty truly is the divine son of the dragon. With the blessing of the heavens, Your Majesty will surely live a long life. He had grown accustomed to hearing people wish him a long life and did not think much about it. However, when he heard Imperial Consort Xian say these words today, it felt a little fake. We were just thinking that to be able to live to the age of 80 like my Empress Dowager Mother would be a very fulfilling feeling. What 10,000 years? My beloved consort would never use such fake words to comfort us before. Imperial Consort Xian awkwardly smiled. In the past, Emperor Ning would not say that she was saying something fake. Would such a woman truly try to poison him over the competition for the crown prince's position? He hesitated. We have hinted at it before, but we never gave you a solid answer. We told the second prince, and he and Danyang mentioned that this had been heard by that palace maid. It's inevitable that it would arouse the envy of other princes. It's possible that this was the reason that we mysteriously fell ill. Imperial Consort Xian suddenly dropped to her knees. Your Majesty means that someone coveted the crown prince's position enough to try and murder Your Majesty? Yes, that is what we mean. She kowtowed deeply until her head touched the ground. In her desperate struggle to survive, an idea suddenly came to mind. If this consort may ask Your Majesty, on the day that Your Majesty's illness suddenly worsened, was it because the second prince and Princess Danyang said something? Why would she suddenly ask about this? Emperor Ning quietly said, on that day, the second prince suddenly came to us. Fearing that we would not recover from the illness, he wanted us. He suddenly found it hard to continue and stared at Imperial Consort Xian in disbelief. You mean to say that this was not done by the eldest prince but by the second prince? Chapter 245 Find a Scapegoat, Part 2, That sly and silver-tongued Imperial Consort Xian. Princess Danyang paced back and forth in the hall, her face distorted with rage. The second prince was even more displeased. If I knew sooner, I would never have listened to you. Capturing Imperial Consort Xian's spy clearly put us in the right. But now what a situation! Imperial Consort Xian whispered a few words, and Father Emperor has even begun to suspect us. After hearing that Imperial Consort Xian's spy had heard about appointing a crown prince, he suspected that Imperial Consort Xian and the eldest prince had poisoned him, leaving him unable to appoint a crown prince before he passed away. After a visit to Qinghua Palace, he had a different suspicion. The second prince wanted to ascend the throne sooner, thus decided to poison him to have him pass away sooner. He would then push him to quickly appoint a crown prince. As for the palace maid or spy, it was entirely possible that the second prince colluded with Princess Danyang to frame Imperial Consort Xian and the eldest prince. Both of these possibilities were quite high, and Emperor Ning could not figure out which side was more likely to have done it. He did not even have someone to talk about this with. Jiyu Huijiang was loyal and never sided with either of the two princes. He was not alone. The loyal court officials, like Ji Gongdao, were also the same. But the more loyal the official, the more he was afraid of them getting involved in the competition. The cabinet had not yet been established, and he did not feel that Yin Shuo was worthy of trust. He had no choice but to throw himself at this difficult task. He would not see the eldest prince or second prince. He would not even see Imperial Consort Xian and Princess Danyang. Now, Father Emperor even suspects me. What is Imperial Consort Xian working off of? Is it not just pillow talk with Father Emperor? If Mother Empress was still around, we siblings would not be subject to such bullying. Princess Danyang slammed the table, her chest rising and falling out of anger. If Mother Empress was still around, she would definitely be reluctant to marry me to someone as useless as Yin Shuo. Enough. The second prince was annoyed. Your constant mentioning of Mother Empress is blaming me for not being able to take care of you. Is it not? Father Emperor's imperial edict decided this marriage. Not to mention how I'm currently not the crown prince, but even if I was, I would be powerless to do anything about it. Could it be that you want me to go and anger Father Emperor at such a critical time? Princess Danyang seemed to suddenly think of something. You don't dare to anger Father Emperor, so let's have someone else take the blame for this. Princess Danyang caught the tail end of spring and hosted a spring banquet, inviting everyone from Marquis Gu's manor and the children of the noble families of the capital. The setting was not in the palace. Instead, it was in a garden outside the city owned by the imperial family. Princess Danyang won't still have any ideas about eldest brother, right? At such a critical time, there are people from Western Kuan in the city, and the people of Western Kuan on the border could attack at any time. How can she be in the mood to host a spring banquet? After receiving their invitations, everyone from Marquis Gu's manor gathered in the western wing to discuss the matter. Jiyu Xiong and Jiyu Yi disliked Princess Danyang the most. In the past, they considered the possibility that she would become their eldest sister-in-law and remained a little respectful. Now, that respect had completely vanished. With a prospective sister-in-law like Yu Fu, who was charming and beautiful, who could possibly desire Princess Danyang? Even harder to come by was how lively and well-behaved she was. Any time that she wanted to try and do anything to get closer to Jiyu Shubai, they would resist. Jiyu Wenqing said, "It's precisely because people from Western Kuan are in the capital, with the princess from Western Kuan present, that Princess Danyang has an excuse to host the banquet under the guise of welcoming guests. Think about it, the princess is a daughter of a noble family. It would not do to have the eldest prince or the second prince welcome her, right? Since a prince could not receive her, it naturally meant that only Princess Danyang could take the stage." Jiyu Yi grimaced, "Western Kuan's people don't care about that at all right? I think that Princess Danyang has an ulterior motive. Eldest brother, will you really be going? Alright, it would be such a pity to not take advantage of the great spring weather. Fourth brother, fifth brother, sixth brother, let's go together." As Yu Fu spoke, she suddenly said, "Huh? Where did second brother go?" Jiyu Shubai burst out laughing, "He won't go. These past few days, he has been taking care of the manor's affairs, spending his days hidden away in the treasury. Don't bother asking him. He won't participate in the spring banquet." He had not asked, so how did he know that Jiyu Juji would not go? Jiyu Shubai noticed the puzzled look in her eyes and continued, "Your status is now different. You can go to the imperial family's gardens whenever you want. If second brother wants to, you can bring him along next time. This time is no good. Princess Danyang also invited Yin Shuo and his sister. Everyone came to a sudden realization. Jiyu Juji was afraid of seeing Yin Jiaro, thus was hiding, right? This was also true. Yin Jiaro had told him her secret. If he did not cool things down, it was very possible for the girl to fall for him. With Yarou Yu as an example, Jiyu Juji did not dare be negligent. Yu Fu quietly muttered, "Princess Danyang invited the man she likes and her future husband. She then invited people from Western Kuan. The situation will surely be quite extraordinary." Chapter 246 Misidentifying the Princess, Part 3. The spring light was radiant and beautiful, and the four from Marquis Gu's manor set out on horseback and leisurely rode to the capital's outskirts. Jiyu Juji did not go, and Jiyu Wenqing also did not go. He said that if a guest came to the manor, there would be nobody to receive them, and there would be nobody to help Jiyu Huijiang if he needed any help. As the younger brother, he could not just drag Jiyu Juji out of the treasury, right? As a result, he decided to stay in the manor to keep him company. While he was doing this, he would help watch the gate and receive any guests that came. This left Yu Fu, Jiyu Shubai, Jiyu Xiong, and Jiyu Yi, thus she decided not to ride in a carriage and rode a horse like the others. This made her feel quite pleased. "Little Yu Fu, ride a little slower. Wait for me." Yu Fu rushed out like the wind, and Jiyu Yi hollered from the back, "Eldest brother is biased, giving Yu Fu such a good horse. It's even faster than my Zui Feng. You'd best forget about it quickly. You yourself are worse than her, so you blame Zui Feng. When you can't shit, do you blame the latrine?" Jiyu Xiong pressed his horse ahead of Jiyu Yi's. "Little Yu Fu's horse is not better than your horse. She's only been learning to ride for a short time, yet she's already better than you. Why don't you do a bit of reflecting?" Saying this, he rushed ahead, leaving Jiyu Yi with just the sight of his horse's butt. "Eldest brother, look at how he's bullying me." Jiyu Shubai ignored him. "Ever since you were young, it's always been you bullying fifth brother. How could he bully you? I'll be going ahead. If you don't catch up, you will be laughed at by others." Jiyu Shubai also chased after Yu Fu, kicking up a cloud of dust. Previously, the worst of the family at riding horses was Jiyu Yi. When Yu Fu, who did not know how to ride horses at all, came along, he finally managed to recover a bit of face. While Yu Fu not learning to ride was normal, who knew how shocking it would be once she did? Her skill was on par with Jiyu Shubai's. "Zui Feng, put in a bit of effort for your master. Count this as me begging you." He whipped his horse's butt, and Zui Feng neighed before charging forward. The four chased after one another. When they arrived at Chunhee Garden, many of the guests had not yet arrived. "Princess, eldest young sir, and the other two young sirs, please come inside." Palace servants came out from inside to welcome them, leading their horses away. Princess Danyang has already arrived and is currently chatting with the other guests inside. "This servant will lead you over immediately. I want to see the gardens around here." Yu Fu was in no rush to go inside. Looking at the garden across from Chunhee Garden, there was a round gate with a sign that had Jingming Garden written on it. The spring air is calm and warm, and the waves are gentle. The names of these imperial gardens were really quite amusing. I heard that there are a total of 5 gardens. What are the other 3 called? Replying to Princess, there are also Huifeng Garden, Heechang Garden, and Yumai Garden. Of the 5, Chunhee Garden is the best and most suited for viewing during spring. As for the other gardens, there are some more suited for summer viewing and winter viewing. It turned out that there was this layer of reasoning. Yu Fu nodded. It's no wonder Princess Danyang chose Chunhee Garden. Since that's the case, we won't see any of the other gardens. Let's go in. She was a princess but did not refer to Princess Danyang as sister. Instead, she just called her princess, which gave off a very distant feeling. A light flickered in the servants' eyes, as they quickly lowered their head. "Yes, please follow this servant." Knowing that Yu Fu would be coming, Princess Danyang was dressed particularly ceremoniously. Her dress was crimson with a vest embroidered with golden peonies. Like the paintings of beauties from the Tang dynasty, she was gorgeous and magnificent, the queen of the beauties. With the arrival of the group from Marquis Gu's manor, everyone's eyes turned to them. Yin Jiaro looked at the group but did not see Jiu Ji and felt quite disappointed. Princess Danyang was even more disappointed. Tian, noble imperial consort Yang, is a historical figure who was characterized as chubby in the novel Dream of the Red Chamber. Chapter 247 Husband of Western Kuan's Imperial Family, Part 4. The sound of a mocking laugh came from below. Could it be that she made a mistake? Western Kuan's princess turned her head and looked around. It did not seem like those people were making fun of her. Then who were they laughing at? Yu Fu glanced in Princess Danyang's direction. Princess has made a mistake and acknowledged the wrong person. The one who is hosting today's banquet is Princess Danyang, that one. Western Kuan's princess came to a sudden realization. She initially thought that the one dressed in a flashy, red dress was a young miss from an aristocratic family with no sense of self-preservation, having come to snatch the princess's glory. For a spring banquet on the city's outskirts, how could a real princess put so much effort into being awkward and dress as if she was in the imperial palace? Seeing Princess Danyang's ugly expression, she immediately apologized for her mistake. I have only just arrived and do not know any of Eastern Ling's nobility and hope that Princess Danyang would be so magnanimous as to forgive me. Though she too was a princess, her attitude was very humble. It seemed that the rumors were not fake. Her status among Emperor Kuan's daughters was not very high. Princess Danyang sneered, Princess sure has a grand style, but you can hardly be blamed. The guest of honor always arrives last. As the host, how could I possibly blame you? Western Kuan's princess immediately understood what she meant and knew that she was blaming her for recognizing the wrong person. She boldly and freely said, I arrived late and failed to recognize Princess. I should be punished. I shall punish myself with 3 cups to apologize. Princess Danyang gave a look, and the palace servants quickly brought out the wine and wine kettle. However, the cups were not small. Instead, they were bowls the size of their palms. Since Princess is showing sincerity, I will forgive you after you finish drinking. She wanted to punish Western Kuan's princess by having her drink from such large bowls. The people present did not have any good feelings for the people from an enemy country, but Princess Danyang wanted to bully this girl, and there were some men present who found this unpleasant. The relative who had called Princess Danyang chubby stood up. Western Kuan's princess is a weak girl. How could she possibly drink 3 bowls in a row? You said that she would be fined 3 cups, but it ended up being 3 bowls. Princess Danyang is a little too lacking in reputation. It was him again. Princess Danyang's thin eyebrows became upturned in anger, and she suddenly remembered that the relative to whom Western Kuan's princess was engaged, was it not the young uncle before her? It was no wonder he would speak up. Princess Danyang sneered, Uncle really is kind to his future wife, her. But you must not forget your identity. You are a member of the imperial family, and she will be a wife to that family. You are not going to be a husband to Western Kuan's imperial family, you. The implication of what she said was that Uncle was biased toward Western Kuan. If anyone else had been accused of such a thing, they would have been terrified to death. Western Kuan's princess glanced at him and smiled brightly. She initially thought that Emperor Ning would just engage her to someone who was completely incompetent. Who knew that her future husband would be so courageous? He was a proper man. He had tried to protect her, so she could not just watch as he was accused of siding with the enemy. Western Kuan's princess lifted the wine cup. It can't be helped. To begin with, it was my mistake, so it's natural to be punished with some wine. There's no need for everyone to feel displeased on my behalf. I will be drinking first. She lifted the bowl and tilted her head back. She looked like an ordinary girl, but she was quite good at handling alcohol, drinking all of the wine in the bowl. In the end, the bowl was completely dry, and she went to pick up the second bowl. Just as she was about to raise it, her hand was grabbed by someone else. She looked over in surprise. The one grabbing her arm was the young girl whom she had misidentified as Princess. The young girl smiled kindly, the dimples at the corners of her mouth especially cute. Forget it, just one bowl is enough. If you continue drinking, you will need to go and lie down in the back later on in the banquet. How can you play around like that? He quickly bowed, then carried the wine away. You. Princess Danyang stomped her foot. That damn servant actually listened to Yu Fu and not her. Many thanks, Princess Xinjiang. Western Kuan's princess held Yu Fu's hand and looked at her gratefully, then looked over at their uncle. The latter's face turned faintly red, as he pretended to fan himself with his folding fan before feigning ignorance and slowly leaving. He simply disliked seeing Princess Danyang flaunt her power to bully someone else. It was not for the sake of protecting his soon-to-be wife. If this was discovered by his group of friends, would he not be mocked to death? Princess Danyang looked over at the crowd. Yin Shuo and Yin Jiaro sat off in a distant corner and did not converse with anyone. The cabinet was being established, and Yin Shuo losing power was just a matter of time. At this time, nobody would pay them any mind. Forget it, Yin Shuo was today's true goal. She would just bear with everything else for now. Chapter 248 Yin Shuo Suffers Humiliation, Part 5. Having offended Princess Danyang, none of the female guests dared to chat with her, thus she could only follow Yu Fu. Yu Fu had a good feeling about her. What should I call Princess? My name is Kuan Yuyang. What a boyish name. It was no wonder she was so free and bold. It was just. Seeing the strange look on Yu Fu's face, Western Kuan's princess finally reacted. Oh, you are asking about my official title, right? I originally had no title. Before coming to Eastern Ling, Father Emperor randomly decided on one. I felt that it had no meaning, so I can't really remember it. Yu Fu could not stop herself from laughing. Princess really is a straightforward person. Since that's the case, don't call me by my title. My name is Yu Fu. Your surname sounds really nice, and the same is true of your give name. My name sounds like it belongs to a boy. It doesn't sound charming at all. Your name makes me think of the wind blowing the soaring clouds along. It sounds both pretty and imposing. Kuan Yuyang scratched her head. What soaring clouds? Slow down a little. I'll write it down. If anyone ever says that my name does not sound nice, I will have a way to argue against them. She was born with a low standing, and even her title was granted randomly right before the political marriage, yet she maintained such a heart and candid attitude. Yu Fu chatted with her for a short while but felt as if they were old friends. This lasted until Jiyu Shubai called her over. Yu Fu, didn't you want to learn archery? Come here. She brought Kuan Yuyang along with her. Those are my elder brothers from Marquis Gu's manor. Let's go together. Marquis Gu's manor was famous in Western Kuan. Everyone knew that if it was not for Marquis Gu's manor blocking the way, Western Kuan would have broken through Eastern Ling many years ago. Jiyu Huijiang's title of God of War was known by all in Western Kuan. Kuan Yuyang felt a little reserved. The two countries had been at war for many years. Having fought on the battlefield for many years, could Marquis Gu's manor accept a princess from Western Kuan like her? Jiyu Shubai and the others stood at the archery field. Seeing Yu Fu lead Western Kuan's princess over, they politely smiled at her. Does princess know how to shoot an arrow? The people of Western Kuan were skilled in martial arts. Girls, like boys, could lead soldiers and fight wars. Kuan Yuyang, as a princess of Western Kuan, it was highly probable that she knew how to shoot an arrow. Sure enough, she nodded, I know a little. I do not dare show my pitiful skills in front of eldest young sir. Jiyu Shubai pointed to an area nearby. A few young sirs from aristocratic families were preparing their bows and arrows, seemingly wanting to compete a little. Princess Danyang wanted everyone to compete, and the winner would win a prize. It would not be good for me to not give her face. If Princess has some time, I want to ask you to teach Yu Fu some archery. Saying this, he pointed at Jiyu Xiong and Jiyu Yi. These younger brothers are too careless and don't know how much strength a girl has. They are completely unable to teach Yu Fu. He wanted her to teach archery to Yu Fu? Kuan Yuyang was overwhelmed by the favor. As she looked at Jiyu Shubai and vigorously nodded her head, I am grateful for the eldest young sir's approval. Don't worry. Leave Yu Fu to me. She was not at all reserved. She had only just become familiar with Yu Fu but was already calling her by name. Jiyu Shubai smiled and left Yu Fu to her before heading to the group of young sirs from aristocratic families. Not too far away, Princess Danyang walked over to Yin Shuo's side. I know that Prime Minister Yin has not been in a good mood recently, so I specially invited you out to relieve your boredom. How about Prime Minister also goes to compete a little? Yin Jiao quietly sat to the side. Upon hearing Princess Danyang's words, she could not help but feel shocked. Yin Shuo was a civil official. It would be fine if he had been asked to write a composition, but how could he possibly compete against the sons of military families? Had Princess Danyang invited him out to relieve his boredom or to humiliate him? Yin Shuo simply said, "Many thanks to Princess Danyang for the love and care. The scenery of Chunhee Garden is very beautiful. Sure enough, my mood has improved a great deal just from looking at it for a while. As for competing in archery and riding, I shall refrain. Thank you for the invitation, Princess." It was no wonder when she looked at Yu Fu's expression that she saw a girl in love and not just a younger sister. Her, who is the one who couldn't even hit the target? She pointed at a handsome young man in the crowd. He looked like a scholar, so why would he participate in this sort of competition? Ji Yu Seong looked over and said with a smile, "That's our Eastern Ling's Prime Minister, Yin Shuo. Yin Shuo, you're a little too lacking, right? You can't shift your shoulders and lift your hand. Of all these people, you're the only one who couldn't hit the target." Princess Danyang angrily called him by his name. It was clear that she felt that Yin Shuo, her future husband, had caused her to lose face. Jiyu Shubai looked over at Yin Shuo and slightly furrowed his brow. Strange, why would he take the initiative to participate in this archery competition? This was completely different from his usual way of doing things. Using one's weakness to combat another's strength. This was the dumbest way of doing things. Even stranger was Princess Danyang. No matter how displeased she might be with Yin Shuo, to show consideration to Emperor Ning having sanctioned this engagement, she should not try to humiliate him in front of so many people. Chapter 249 Lucky, Part 6, Lacking? Yin Shuo had lived for 21 years, and this was the first time that he had been described in such a manner. He had always been the most talented youth in the capital. Having been conferred the title of Prime Minister at a young age, he occupied a lofty position in the imperial court. Yet Princess Danyang was publicly saying that he was lacking. He laughed. "Princess, Yin Jiao told you that I was not good at riding and archery and that I did not want to come and compete. Princess insisted that I come and compete, yet now you look down on me." The cabinet was about to be established, and the Prime Minister was about to lose power. Even his future wife refused to give him any face in public. Some people began quietly discussing this. What is happening with Princess Danyang? She's being a little too mean. First, it was the princess from Western Kuan. Now, it's Prime Minister Yin. How does making Prime Minister Yin lose face help her? Husband and wife share the honors and disgraces. Does she think that humiliating Prime Minister Yin will allow her to make herself look better? Prime Minister Yin really is pitiful. A perfectly fine civil official was forced to come and participate in archery, and he had to suffer humiliation. Princess Danyang faintly heard the discussion. Not only did she not hold back, but she went even further. If you know that you are not good at it, why not put in some effort into learning? If you want to be this princess's husband, it's natural that you must be both a talented scholar and skilled in martial arts. Instead of learning to make up for what you lack, you make excuses. You're really gutless. There was an uproar. She actually said something so rude. Kuan Yuyang asked Yu Fu, "Your Princess Danyang, is her," she pointed at her head, "a little slow?" Ji Yu Seong and Ji Yu Yi burst out laughing. "Ha ha ha, you're absolutely right. Her head is a little slow." Yu Fu seemed to have something on her mind, as she shook her head. Normally, she can't be considered smart, But she has never been this stupid before. She must have some sort of goal. Things are not as simple as they seem. Both a talented scholar and skilled in martial arts, she must be talking about Jiyu Shubai, right? Yin Shuo's expression was livid. Being compared by his future wife to the person she loved, and she did not stop at mocking him. This was not something any man could tolerate. He coldly looked at Jiyu Shubai, and the latter had a heavy gaze, calmly returning a look. His gaze told Yin Shuo that this was unrelated to him. Yin Shuo thought for a moment and suddenly understood what Princess Danyang was trying to do. He forced out a smile. It's me who was lacking in learning. If I knew that Princess Danyang liked people who were good at riding and archery, I should have put more effort into learning. Rather than get annoyed, he was actually able to smile. Princess Danyang frowned. She searched through her mind for all sorts of nasty things to say, trying to make Yin Shuo look even worse. There's no need. For someone as lacking as you, this princess refuses to marry. Even if I marry you, this princess will never treat you well. You might as well just give up now. In the end, she was a princess of the imperial family. She had not heard the worst things shouted by angry wives in the marketplace, thus this was the worst that she could muster. With the host leaving, the scene quickly turned ugly. Some people wanted to go and say a few comforting words to Yin Shuo, but they were also worried that the wrong words would make him feel even worse. They could only leave in silence. Some people took advantage of the situation to quickly leave. This would save them from getting caught up in a storm for no reason. Even more people were happy to enjoy the show, feeling that the marriage between Princess Danyang and Yin Shuo was most likely over. After suffering this sort of humiliation, what sort of man would obediently marry her? Unless he was a bastard, Yin Shuo was the dignified prime minister. He definitely would not need to do so. If it had been me, I would seek out His Majesty to ask for the engagement to be cancelled. What's the benefit of marrying a princess? If she's like Princess Shanyin from the Liu Song dynasty, having numerous male lovers, the husband would be nothing more than a cuckold and a bastard. That's right, to be insulted like this, even I would want to ask for the engagement to be cancelled, much less someone of Prime Minister Yin's stature. Everyone quietly chatted while dispersing, and Yu Fu smiled with her head down. Heavens, that was shot by Princess Zhenjiang? How could that be? She's such a small girl. People muttered that it was impossible, but everyone subconsciously gathered around to ask about the origin of the arrow. Kuan Yuyang was very direct. The one that landed off-center was mine. The one that landed in the very middle was shot by your Princess Zhenjiang. It really was her. Princess Zhenjiang really is the valiant daughter of a general's family. She really has Lord Marquis Gu's style. So what if she was not truly his daughter? That she could be raised like this despite not being his true daughter was what made it truly incredible. Yu Fu wanted to stop Kuan Yuyang but did not act in time. Faced with all of this praise, she could only hollowly smile. I was lucky. I was just lucky. Through the crowd of people, Yu Fu looked over toward the archery ground. Yin Shuo's back was slightly hunched, and he took advantage of being alone to leave on his own. That figure was as lonely as could be. Chapter 250 To Cancel the Engagement or Not, Part 7. When leaving Chunhee Garden, Ku Yuyang gave Yu Fu a kingfisher hairpin. I originally planned to give this to the host of today's banquet, but no matter how I look at it, I feel that it would suit you better. The hairpin made of silver was quite ordinary, and the only part that stood out was the feathers that were gathered together to portray a phoenix bathed in flames. It was very realistic. Kuan Yuyang retrieved it from a brocade box. When Yu Fu saw it, she immediately said, "What beautiful feathers. I haven't seen such beautiful feather accessories in Eastern Ling. I haven't seen many good feather accessories recently." Kuan Yuyang felt a bit delighted. Our Western Kuan is mostly mountainous and forested terrain, unlike Eastern Ling's flat plains. It's natural that there would be more kingfishers. But it's not so easy to find the feathers necessary from a single kingfisher. Jiyu Shubai and the others did not really understand accessories. At a glance, they simply felt that the hairpin was eye-catching but not in poor taste. Based on Yu Fu's expression, She really liked this hairpin. You brought this a great distance and naturally planned to use it to help forge a path forward for yourself. How could I accept it so easily? Could it be that you want me to give it to Princess Danyang as an apology? It's too late. She already hates me. It would be better for me to just try and win your favor. I wonder if Princess Junjiang would be willing to grant me this favor. Kuan Yuyang grinned cheekily and shifted forward, as Yu Fu grabbed the hairpin from her hand without any hesitation. She liked this kingfisher hairpin, and she also liked Kuan Yuyang's unrestrained and bold personality. Did you see how much your future husband was protecting you? He is Princess Danyang's uncle. You will be Princess Danyang's aunt-in-law, so is there any need for you to be afraid of her? Aunt-in-law? Whether or not she could become Princess Danyang's aunt-in-law still remained to be seen. Kuan Yuyang's expression suddenly wilted. Yu Fu, you're smart, and the eldest young sir is even smarter. There are some things that you will surely be able to guess without me saying. I think of you as a friend and don't wish to hide anything from you. Yu Fu immediately cut her off. There's no need to continue. Princess should not even be saying these things. You are a princess of Western Kuan. You should understand what happens to those who betray their homeland. Fearing for her safety, Yu Fu added, don't worry. Since ancient times, the princess who comes for a political marriage does not get to make any decisions for herself. His Majesty is not an unreasonable person. These words nearly completely exposed Western Kuan's schemes. Kuan Yuyang placed a hand on her chest and let out a sigh. Sure enough, Yu Fu and the others already knew, but it was not what she had talked about. This was also fine. There was no need for her to betray her homeland, nor did she need to live her life on tenterhooks. Merciful Buddha, it seems that I will have a chance to live out my life in Eastern Ling. I won't delay you any further. I will be leaving first. She happily departed, and Jiuyi clicked his tongue from the back. I have never seen someone who is even more thoughtless than me, and it ended up being a girl. No, there was still another. How could he have forgotten Su Yunyang? Ji Yu Xiong resentfully said to him, with you, it's because we spoiled you. The princess of Western Kuan is different from you. Her path in life is a bumpy one, and she has no choice but to be open, or she would have died from depression long ago. Exactly what sort of life she lived in the past could be seen by the fact that Emperor Kuan was willing to send her over as a distraction. Ji Yu Yi was not satisfied with this. I was spoiled by father and eldest brother and the others. How is that related to you? You and I are the same age. How have you ever spoiled me? How have you spoiled me? Ji Yu Xiong fiercely smacked him on the forehead. Me not hitting you is considered me spoiling you. Ji Yu Shubai helplessly shook his head and turned to look at Yu Fu. I have ordered for a carriage to be brought over. Your hand must be sore from training in archery, right? It would be best to ride in a carriage on the way back. Ji Yu Xiong and Ji Yu Yi immediately stopped arguing. I also want to ride in the carriage. After a brief argument, Ji Yu Shubai relented, and all four rode in the carriage. Ji Yu Yi was the first to speak. Once the cabinet is established, the Prime Minister will either lose his influence or will be removed entirely. Yin Shuo's father had an incident, and he does not have any backers in court. If he does not marry Princess Danyang, he will be completely hopeless. Ji Yu Xiong built on his foundation. Also, his actions against Marquis Gu's manor have already displeased His Majesty. If he goes and brings up cancelling the engagement, His Majesty might completely strip him of his court position. That would truly spell the end for him. After going back and forth, there was no possibility of Yin Shuo backing out of the engagement. No matter how much Princess Danyang embarrassed him, it would be better than completely losing power. Yu Fu was also unable to explain what she felt. She felt that there was a strong sense of conflict between Yin Shuo and Princess Danyang and that the two were not suited to being together. The two of them coming together filled her with an ominous feeling. Ji Yu Shubai smiled. I also feel that he will not cancel the engagement, but the excuse will be different from what you two are saying. Initially, he could have backed out of this engagement, but now that Princess Danyang has humiliated him, he can no longer do so. Why is that? Chapter 251 Another two conferred in an instant, Part 1. While the Board of Rites planned the wedding banquet for the two princesses, another letter was delivered from the border with haste. Western Kuan's army was 100,000 strong. The soldiers were already on the borders of Zhuguan and Weiju. It was clear that the enemy had come prepared. With both rations and medicine prepared, the situation was dire. The officials were shocked. They never thought that this sort of news would come while they were preparing for joyous matters. It was truly unheard of. Western Kuan truly is ambitious. Sending a princess to improve relations was fake, and hiding the truth from us is the truth. Even wild beasts will look after their young, so for Emperor Kuan to give up his own daughter for the sake of deceiving us, it's truly too vicious. Your Majesty, please quickly dispatch Lord Marquis Jiyu to organize the troops and set out for Zhuguan and Weiju. Emperor Ning waved his broad sleeve and remained calm. There's no need to worry. Marquis Jiyu has already made plans for this, sending out the third young sir to the border beforehand to command the troops. For the time being, there will be no danger. What? Jiyu Huijiang already knew that Western Kuan was going to attack. Thinking back, Jiyu Huijiang said that there was a secret military matter that he could only tell Emperor Ning about. It turned out to be this. The court officials let out a sigh of relief. They knew that with Jiyu Huijiang present, Western Kuan was no cause for concern. Some could not help but feel curious. Your Majesty, Lord Marquis Jiyu, may I ask how Lord Marquis Jiyu knew that Western Kuan was going to launch an assault on the border? Jiyu Huijiang replied based on the facts. The deity of medicine has divine foresight. Before Western Kuan sent out their princess for the marriage to improve relations, if this Marquis talked about this matter, it's inevitable that there would be a chance of being suspected of starting a war. For the sake of preventing any information from leaking, it was kept hidden from the court officials. I hope that everyone will excuse me. So that was the case. Everything that Lord Marquis Jiyu does is for the sake of Eastern Ling. We are truly too lacking. This was in spite of clearly knowing the risks involved. Lord Marquis Jiyu truly is a hero and is worthy of admiration. Yin Shuo stood in place with a blank expression. He had lost this match from the very beginning. Jiyu Huijiang had deliberately enticed him into stealing the military report and used that matter to report to Emperor Ning. Not only had he failed to trip him up, but he had also given him a helping hand. That damn Jiyu Huijiang, as a general, his mind was not the slightest bit duller than the other court officials. His scheme really was spectacular. It was amazing and could not be any better. Jiyu Huijiang earnestly said, Your Majesty, since Western Kuan has already made its move, requests permission to immediately set out with the army. Very well, then who will be brought along as Deputy General? Jiyu Huijiang thought for a bit, Shubai and Zhu Ji. He was bringing Jiyu Shubai and Jiyu Zhu Ji, and Jiyu Hanmo was already at the border. With this, only the young ones will remain at the manor. Emperor Ning felt a little uneasy. Ever since Jiyu Shubai nearly died to Yin Yang's plot, Jiyu Huijiang had been very cautious, fearing that something might happen to his children. This time, he was putting his life on the line. It seemed as though he wanted Western Kuan to suffer a massive loss, allowing for a few more years of peace at the border. He was moved and slowly nodded. Shubai is already the young general of the Jiyu family's army. Hand down our edict. We confer Jiyu Zhu Ji the title of 4th-ranked cavalry general, and we confer Jiyu Hanmo the title of 4th-ranked guard general. They are to set out today. 2 titles were conferred in an instant. Jiyu Huijiang was a subject who could be conferred no further titles, thus Emperor Ning showed his favor by rewarding his children. In a single manner, there were 4 with court titles, and there was 1 who had been conferred the title of princess. This was completely unprecedented. The court was filled with officials, but nobody dared to object. Some people glanced toward Imperial Censor Ji Daogong, hoping that he would step forward to say something and prevent Emperor Ning from showing too much favor to his generals. Ji Daogong ignored all of the looks. It was as if he had not heard or seen anything. He was old, but his eyes were exceptionally keen. He knew whom Emperor Ning should trust and whom he should show favor. Jiyu Huijiang stepped forward and said, This subject appreciates your majesty's favor, but the two of them are a little too young and have not seen any actual battles. To directly promote them to 4th rank is a little too much for them. Would your majesty please retract your edict? He said everything that everyone else wanted to say, but it just made everyone feel ashamed. He, Jiyu Huaijiang, did not covet this sort of favor in the slightest. Emperor Ning waved his broad sleeve. They're no longer too young. When you were 20, you were a young general who charged onto the battlefield. When Shu Bai was 20, he was able to lead soldiers on his own to hold the defensive line. Marquis Gu's manor is filled with good sons. We cannot allow them to be covered up by their brother and father's glory. With these words having been said, it was clear that his mind was made up. It would not be good for Jiyu Huaijiang to continue refusing. This subject thanks your majesty on my son's behalf. This matter must not be delayed. This subject will set out tomorrow morning and will bid farewell to your majesty now. Farewell, Marquis Jiyu. You must return triumphant. The officials in court bowed, and Jiyu Huaijiang cupped his hands to return the gesture. Being watched by everyone's expectant gazes, he strode out of the hall. The luggage had been packed beforehand, and Jiyu Shubai and Jiyu Juji were not nervous. They were just a little shocked. They initially thought that Jiyu Huaijiang would leave at least one of them behind to handle matters at home. Although we have made preparations for this battle beforehand, Father did not think that Western Kuan would send out 100,000 troops for their initial assault. Zhu Guan and Wei Ju are being attacked at the same time. The enemy is fighting on 2 fronts, and we can't say for certain that they won't choose a third location. It could be said that this battle will determine the situation between Western Kuan and Eastern Ling. You two should both go and take a look. As members of the military, they hated only talking about the movement of soldiers on paper. They would learn the most through action. Moreover, such a battle was exceedingly rare to come by. Jiyu Huaijiang called everyone to the main hall. Right before setting out, he gave many warnings and reminders, and everyone listened carefully. Jiyu Wenqing was sensible and said, "Since father will be going with eldest brother and second brother, I will be sure to take good care of the manor's affairs and take care of my younger brothers and sister. Father and elder brothers, please do not worry. Go and return safely. You have always been very steady. Naturally, father is not worried. Let Yu Fu help you take care of the manor's affairs. That way, you will have someone to work with." Jiyu Xiong and Jiyu Yi stood to the side and nodded. Hearing this, they immediately realized that something was off. "Father, Yu Fu is even younger than us. How come you're letting Yu Fu help fourth brother? What about us?" Yu Fu was a little surprised. Yu Fu had grown accustomed to having everything handed to her in Marquis Gu's manor and had never handled any of the manor's affairs. She thought that Jiyu Huaijiang was unable to find anyone to help Jiyu Wenqing, thus considered her. However, Jiyu Shubai suddenly looked at her with a smile. Another two conferred in an instant. Part 1. While the Board of Rites planned the wedding banquet for the two princesses, another letter was delivered from the border with haste. Western Kuan's army was 100,000 strong. The soldiers were already on the borders of Zhuguan and Weiju. It was clear that the enemy had come prepared. With both rations and medicine prepared, the situation was dire. The officials were shocked. They never thought that this sort of news would come while they were preparing for joyous matters. It was truly unheard of. Western Kuan truly is ambitious. Sending a princess to improve relations was fake, and hiding the truth from us is the truth. Even wild beasts will look after their young, so for Emperor Kuan to give up his own daughter for the sake of deceiving us, it's truly too vicious. Your Majesty, please quickly dispatch Lord Marquis Jiyu to organize the troops and set out for Zhuguan and Weiju. Emperor Ning waved his broad sleeve and remained calm. There's no need to worry. Marquis Jiyu has already made plans for this, sending out the third young sir to the border beforehand to command the troops. For the time being, there will be no danger. What? Jiyu Huaijiang already knew that Western Kuan was going to attack. Thinking back, Jiyu Huaijiang said that there was a secret military matter that he could only tell Emperor Ning about. It turned out to be this. The court officials let out a sigh of relief. They knew that with Jiyu Huijiang present, Western Kuan was no cause for concern. Jiyu Huijiang stepped forward and said, "This subject appreciates your majesty's favor, but the two of them are a little too young and have not seen any actual battles. To directly promote them to 4th rank is a little too much for them. Would your majesty please retract your edict?" He said everything that everyone else wanted to say, but it just made everyone feel ashamed. He, Jiyu Huijiang, did not covet this sort of favor in the slightest. Emperor Ning waved his broad sleeve. "They're no longer too young. When you were 20, you were a young general who charged onto the battlefield. When Shu Bai was 20, he was able to lead soldiers on his own to hold the defensive line. Marquis Gu's manor is filled with good sons. We cannot allow them to be covered up by their brother and father's glory." With these words having been said, it was clear that his mind was made up. It would not be good for Jiyu Huijiang to continue refusing. "This subject thanks your majesty on my son's behalf. This matter must not be delayed. This subject will set out tomorrow morning and will bid farewell to your majesty now. Farewell, Marquis Jiyu. You must return triumphant." The officials in court bowed, and Jiyu Huijiang cupped his hands to return the gesture. Being watched by everyone's expectant gazes, he strode out of the hall. The luggage had been packed beforehand, and Jiyu Shubai and Jiyu Juji were not nervous. They were just a little shocked. They initially thought that Jiyu Huijiang would leave at least one of them behind to handle matters at home. "Although we have made preparations for this battle beforehand, Father did not think that Western Kuan would send out 100,000 troops for their initial assault. Zhu Guan and Wei Ju are being attacked at the same time. The enemy is fighting on 2 fronts, and we can't say for certain that they won't choose a third location. It could be said that this battle will determine the situation between Western Kuan and Eastern Ling. You two should both go and take a look." As members of the military, they hated only talking about the movement of soldiers on paper. They would learn the most through action. Moreover, such a battle was exceedingly rare to come by. Jiyu Huijiang called everyone to the main hall. Right before setting out, he gave many warnings and reminders, and everyone listened carefully. Jiyu Wenqing was sensible and said, "Since father will be going with eldest brother and second brother, I will be sure to take good care of the manor's affairs and take care of my younger brothers and sister. Father and elder brothers, please do not worry. Go and return safely. You have always been very steady. Naturally, father is not worried. Let Yu Fu help you take care of the manor's affairs. That way, you will have someone to work with." Jiyu Xiong and Jiyu Yi stood to the side and nodded. Hearing this, they immediately realized that something was off. "Father, Yu Fu is even younger than us. How come you're letting Yu Fu help 4th brother? What about us?" Yu Fu was a little surprised. Yu Fu had grown accustomed to having everything handed to her in Marquis Gu's manor and had never handled any of the manor's affairs. She thought that Jiyu Huijiang was unable to find anyone to help Jiyu Wenqing, thus considered her. However, Jiyu Shubai suddenly looked at her with a smile. Chapter 252. Look at her once more before leaving, Part 2. Before the sun came up, the candles in the main hall were burning bright. Jiyu Shubai and Jiyu Juji tidied up thoroughly. When they passed by the western wing on their way to the main hall, the two subconsciously stopped. Following this, the two exchanged a look. Jiyu Juji was a little embarrassed and quietly coughed. "You go ahead. There's still time. I will go ahead to the main hall and let father know. At the very least, this expedition would take many months and could extend to a year or 2. He would definitely want to see Yu Fu before going." "Thanks." Jiyu Shubai did not act reserved, handing his sword to him. Turning around, he soared over the western wing's wall. It was too early. The western wing's gates had not yet been opened. The granny standing guard overnight heard the noise and walked out with a candle. Seeing that it was Jiyu Shubai, she hurried to wake Lian Zhu and Lian Bai, and Jiyu Shubai gestured for the two to remain quiet. "Don't wake her up. I will leave after seeing her." Lian Zhu and Lian Bai understood, placing a dim candle at the foot of Yu Fu's bed, then quietly retreating from the room. Yu Fu was in a deep sleep. The dim candlelight illuminated her face. Her pink lips were slightly parted, giving her a peaceful and serene appearance. Since it was the end of spring, she was covered in just a thin silk blanket. Jiyu Shubai carefully walked over to the side of the bed and picked up a woolen blanket, placing it on top of the silk blanket. While sleeping, Yu Fu seemed to notice that something was off and muttered a few words. He brought his face closer to try and hear what she was saying, but only heard her smacking her lips. Did this little girl not know that with him leaving today, she would not be able to see him for a long time? She was actually able to sleep so soundly. He plaintively scratched her nose a couple of times, then turned and carried the candle toward the door. Eldest brother. In the end, he woke her up. Jiyu Shubai turned around and saw Yu Fu flip over and mutter with her eyes closed, "Eldest brother, eldest brother." It turned out that she was talking in her sleep. He quietly muttered to himself, "Who knows what's happening to me in her dream?" If not for the rush to depart, he really wanted to sit here until the sun came up. When she woke up, he could ask her about her dream. Unfortunately, he dotingly smiled in Yu Fu's direction, then quietly retreated from the room. "Eldest young sir." Yarolan walked over in a daze holding a sachet. "Young miss embroidered this for eldest young sir. She originally planned to give it to you during the new year, but a lot happened at that time, and she could not finish embroidering it in time. Young miss entrusted me with giving it to you." Jiyu Shubai received the sachet. The plum blossom pattern embroidered on it was suited to being worn during winter, but it was now the end of spring. On that winter day, in a daze, he recalled how his life was dangling by a thread in the forest in Changju. He recalled hiding in that pitch-black cave with Jiyu Yi, and he recalled Yu Fu's angelic figure appearing in that cave. He remembered how she worked day and night to take care of him. He recalled how she fed him medicine and food. All of these memories lingered in his mind. A unique medicinal smell dragged him back to the present. He brought the sachet up to his nose. It doesn't seem to be a common fragrance inside this sachet. What is inside? Yarolan also did not know. It was prepared by young miss herself. This servant also does not know what it is. Why did she not give it to me herself? Young miss said that eldest young sir would be leaving before the sun came up. At such a time, she might not be able to get up. Eldest young sir would surely be reluctant to wake her up. If that was the case, she would have this servant give it to you. Jiyu Shubai smiled. She did not hide anything, talking about things like whether or not he would be reluctant. However, Yarolan was feeling mischievous. "What did young miss see in your dream?" "I seem to have dreamed of eldest brother. He came to see me and said something to me." She felt her nose. The familiar feeling left her unable to determine whether it was a dream or reality. Lian Zhu and the others stood to the side. They did not urge her to go back to bed and simply waited for her to lie back down on her own. Yu Fu suddenly shouted, "Ah, this is bad. What time is it right now? Have the head general and the others set out yet?" Young miss did not dream it. Eldest young sir did indeed come, but he has already left. Calculating the time, they should have already set out. Yu Fu hastily got out of bed and ran out. Lian Zhu only had time to put an outer garment on her shoulders. "Young miss, put something on before going out." If she waited until her clothes were properly put on, he would have already left. Wrapped in the garment, Yu Fu hastily ran toward the main hall. The only person inside was Qian, and he was tidying up. "Steward Qi, where are the head general and the others?" Seeing that Yu Fu was only wearing her pajamas, Qian was stunned and subconsciously pointed toward the main gate. "Lord Marquis and the two young sirs have already set out." Yu Fu hastily ran out. When she arrived at the gate, gasping for air, she was only able to see the rear of the long column of troops. The light from the torches created the image of a long dragon, and it was getting further and further away on this quiet night. Chapter 253 Not high quality rice at all, Part 3. In a mountain with no tigers, the monkey was king. After Jiyu Huijiang's group left, Marquis Gu's manor became the domain of monkeys, as Jiyu Xiong and Jiyu Yi messed around. Jiyu Wenqing was just as reassuring as always. He shouldered the burden of handling the manor's affairs, and when he had time, he would help Yu Guan with Yushan building. Little Yu Fu, come quickly. There's something fun here. Jiyu Yi cheerfully ran over to the western wing. When the people of the western wing heard his voice, they knew that the sixth young sir had gained a new toy. Who knew that when they saw it, it was another kite. Yu Fu sat next to the table and just took a look. Weren't we flying kites quite often a little while ago? Here I was thinking that it was something new, but it turned out to be kites again. She casually flipped through the book that she was holding, and Jiyu Yi tilted his head to take a look. It was a record of the manor's expenses. Little Yu Fu, what are you looking at this for? How boring is that? Let's go out and fly kites. Whoever can knock the others out of the air while keeping their own flying wins. Jiyu Xiong also chimed in. That's right. Let's go out and play. What's so fun about being kept inside by fourth brother to read records? Yu Fu said, it's not fourth brother keeping me in. I wanted to do it. When the head general left, he advised me to help fourth brother. With both of you going out to play, how pitiful is it for fourth brother to take care of the manor's affairs on his own? She did not understand too much, but she studied quite well. Thus Jiyu Wenqing handed her the accounting reports to inspect. Jiyu Yi wanted to say a little bit more, but Jiyu Xiong secretly tugged on his sleeve. Forget it. Let's not play either. How about we go to the kitchen to see what snacks are there, and we can have people bring them for Yu Fu and us to eat. While he spoke, he looked at Yu Fu. She should at least have time to eat snacks with them, right? Yu Fu nodded with a smile. All right, when you guys get back, I should have finished looking over the record, and we can eat snacks together. Jiyu Yi handed the kite to Yarolan and obediently followed Jiyu Xiong. Why did you not try persuading little Yu Fu a little more? She's still so young. She should go out and play. Who knows what father was thinking, insisting on having her help fourth brother with the manor's affairs. Are you stupid? Jiyu Xiong walked in the direction of the kitchen and rolled his eyes at Jiyu Yi. You are worried about little Yu Fu, so could it be that father isn't? But little Yu Fu will eventually become our eldest sister-in-law, the wife of the heir to the manor. Sooner or later, she will need to learn to manage these matters. Oh. Jiyu Yi had a sudden realization, so it was like that. I was just saying, with how much father dotes on little Yu Fu, how could he be willing to have her work so much? The two arrived at the kitchen before they realized it. It was still early, and the kitchen had not yet begun preparing lunch, thus the chef and helping servants had quite a bit of free time. Upon seeing Jiyu Xiong and Jiyu Yi, they quickly came forward to greet them. Why have fifth young sir and sixth young sir personally come to the kitchen? If you want something to eat, you can just send a servant. Normally, they would have their personal servants come to fetch snacks. It was quite rare for the two of them to come, but they found that the chefs seemed to look quite panicked. It was as though they did not want them to come. Jiyu Yi did not realize this and carelessly said, we didn't really have anything in mind and just came to take a look. Are there any snacks that were already made? Previously, they did not visit the kitchen very often and did not have a clear understanding of this place. It seemed that there was nothing untoward. Regardless of whether it was the vegetables or the meat, everything was in its rightful place. There did not seem to be anything missing. The chef with the cheeky smile said, young sirs, as you can see, I told you that there's nothing wrong, right? You two are overthinking it. No, if there really was no problem, what were they so worried for? Jiyu Xiong slowly looked around and only found a brown basket in the corner. The bright yellow tag on it had not yet been removed. This should be something brought in by the palace. He walked toward it, and the chefs wiped away some sweat. Is this the polished rice sent in by the palace? He stuck his hand into the rice and retracted it with a small pile in his palm, immediately understanding why these chefs were nervous. It was because the rice inside this basket was not polished rice from the imperial farm at all. Chapter 254 I didn't give permission. Who dares leave? Part 4. What's the situation with this rice? Ji Seong asked the chefs, and Ji Yi curiously stepped forward and felt it. What's wrong with this rice? This isn't polished rice from the imperial field. That rice is as white as snow, while this rice is faintly yellow. It's clear that it has been swapped out by someone. The chef hastily said, "Fifth young sir, you can't say it like that. This rice has been in the kitchen, and we have been watching it every day. How could it have been swapped out by someone? You two are young and don't understand. The rice currently looks like it is faintly yellow, but once it's boiled, it will be as white as snow." Ji Seong immediately understood what he meant. Now that Ji Huijiang and their older brothers were not at home, the servants were starting to slack off. These chefs were secretly taking the polished rice from the imperial fields and selling it. They were just bullying them by saying that they were young and did not understand. Coincidentally, Ji Seong happened to know what polished rice looked like. That's impossible. I have seen imperial polished rice. It's already white before it's boiled. This absolutely is not polished rice. Impossible. Fifth young sir, this is polished rice from the imperial farms. With the chef with the cheeky smile taking the lead, the other two chefs also gained some courage upon noticing that they did not understand a lot. That's right. Though young sir is a master, you can't just falsely blame us servants with no evidence. You guys. The rice rewarded by the imperial court was clearly stolen by you guys, yet you're saying that we're falsely blaming you. With the two sides arguing, the servants who worked in the kitchen heard the commotion and came over. For a while, they did not dare to say which side was right. The chefs were the ones who made the decision in the kitchen, while Ji Seong and Ji Yi were masters of the manor who controlled nothing. The common saying was that the idle official is lower than the manager. The ones who knew about the situation with the rice also did not dare to speak up so carelessly. Ji Yi shouted, "Quickly go and call fourth brother to sort this matter. How can we tolerate a crime happening in our own home?" Nobody in the crowd moved, as the grannies looked at one another. Nobody dared to move. If they did not help the two young sirs, nothing would happen. If they did help the young sirs by testifying against the chefs, they would be ostracized by the kitchen staff. After much thought, they decided not to concern themselves with this matter and just watch on from the side. Ji Seong and Ji Yi were the young sirs of a prominent family, so they have never argued with servants before. They were completely unable to get the upper hand against these chefs, as they argued until they were red in the face but still could not find themselves in an advantageous position. What happened? Yu Fu had finished looking through the records and noticed that they had been gone for a long time, thus she led a group of people over to take a look. Who knew that she would see an argument? Ji Seong said, "Didn't we tell someone to go and find fourth brother? Little Yu Fu, why have you come? You go back first. The situation here is ugly, and it might taint your ears." Yu Fu said. Fourth brother and Steward Chi went out to inspect the hamlets. They won't be back before it gets dark. After saying this, she looked around the group. It's almost time for lunch. It's one thing if the chefs have something else to do, but do you grannies intend to not make any food for us? The grannies immediately scattered, and the chefs exchanged a look. They thought to themselves that the word something else to do had a deeper meaning. The obedient-looking young miss had quite a piercing tone to her words, but what of it? No matter how fierce she was only 13 years old. She was just a little girl who did not understand anything. The lead chef continued to wear his cheeky smile. "Young miss, we also don't have anything to do." It's fifth young sir and sixth young sir who got excited and insisted on saying that we stole the Polish rice that came from the imperial farms. How could we dare to do such a thing? He looked up at the sky. Oh, young miss was talking about the time. Sure enough, it's time to make lunch. We will be going to prepare lunch now. Marquis Gu's manor received all manners of imperial rewards, and even the lowest level of servant knew that according to Eastern Ling's laws, stealing imperial rewards would result in the death penalty. The chef realized that he could no longer avoid it and straightened his neck, saying, "Young miss, this lowly one also can't remember." This lowly one was not originally a servant in Marquis Gu's manor. It's because my cooking was delicious that Lord Marquis brought me in from Tianxiong building. Also, even if this lowly one really did take the rice, wouldn't returning it just be fine? Recently, it's been the fourth young sir who has been managing the manor's affairs and has not troubled young miss with it. Jiu Yi was so angry that he wanted to rush forward. This chef really was as shameless as they came. He said that the two of them were too young and did not understand anything, so he naturally did not think anything of the 13-year-old Yu Fu. Yu Fu was someone whom they treated as a pearl. How could she be allowed to suffer from being bullied? Ji Yuxiong stopped him and gave him a look. Yu Fu had a way to deal with this. It would be best if they did not interfere. By the way, I will be taking a day off every month, so there will be fewer updates. Will everyone be able to accept this? Chapter 255 Inheriting the Spirit of Marquis Gu's Manor, Part 1. Yu Fu walked toward the chef with a smile that did not look like a smile. Did you know that the manor does not always receive polished rice, and part of what is received belongs to me? His Majesty said that anything that the princesses residing in the palace should have, I too must have. The chef's expression froze. Turning to look at the golden tag on the basket, he could not tell if this was Yu Fu's portion or the reward for Marquis Gu's manor. Yu Fu knew that he could not tell. Even if the manor's affairs are none of my business, once you have touched my rice, is it still none of my business? The chefs with less courage standing to the side felt their knees become weak, and they were about to drop to their knees to beg for forgiveness, but they were stopped by the chef standing at the front. All of these chefs had been brought in from the outside. It was likely that they were already a group before they came to the manor, thus they had the courage to steal rice after coming to the manor. You worthless shit. The lead chef gave him a look, as his expression quickly changed, sitting on the ground and wiping away tears. Young miss, show some mercy. I have old folks and children to take care of at home. In any case, I have cooked in the manor for over a year. You can't bully me, a lowly chef, like this. Marquis Gu's manor has always shown compassion for the old and poor. You can't just take advantage of when the master is out to bully the servant. He was clearly the one who had stolen the rice, but he turned it around to say that Yu Fu was bullying him and used Marquis Gu's manor's reputation to pressure her. He thought that by using Marquis Gu's manor's reputation, he would be able to leave Yu Fu unable to do anything. This was the first time that Yu Fu had ever seen such shamelessness. She did not get annoyed. She just found it strange. Marquis Gu's manor has always shown compassion for the old and poor, and the servants of the manor have worked here for multiple generations. That is why they show such loyalty to Marquis Gu's manor. For example, Steward Qi, father and son have served in the manor and are shown respect by everyone in the manor. Then, for example, Qi Ting, the chef sitting on the ground froze. Who was Qi Ting? He had never heard of her. An old servant reminded him, Qi Ting was Steward Qi's daughter. Previously, she was the head servant in the young miss room. After that, she made mistakes and died. Died? The chef shuddered in fear, believing that it was Yu Fu who had killed Qi Ting. His eyes were suddenly filled with dread. Yu Fu said, in Marquis Gu's manor, the servants who have served for a long time are shown more face than the younger masters. Have you ever seen us treat the members of Steward Qi's family unfairly? But this isn't an excuse that you can use to pressure your masters. When have you ever seen Steward Qi dare to try and pressure us? People must have humility, or they will be humiliated. Her words intelligently protected the reputation of Marquis Gu's manor and refuted what these chefs were saying. This thoroughly convinced everyone. Young miss, please spare us. These chefs who were acting domineering just a moment earlier all dropped to their knees and begged for forgiveness. They no longer dared to act stubborn. Young miss, we did indeed steal that polished rice, but we still haven't had a chance to sell it before we were caught by the two young sirs. We will bring it back immediately and beg young miss for mercy. If other families were granted imperial rewards, they would carefully hide them in the warehouse and cover them with red cloth, But Marquis Gu's manor received all manners of imperial rewards, thus things like polished rice from the imperial farms were placed directly in the kitchen. They thought that with the masters of the manor gone, they could take advantage of this time to steal some to sell on the outside without anyone noticing. Even if it was discovered, nothing could happen to them. They never thought that Yu Fu would be so fearsome. Ji Yi pointed at them and said, You're lucky that you still haven't sold it. Did you know that once you sold it, it would become a problem for the imperial censorate? Once that happened, no amount of begging would save you. The chefs kowtowed repeatedly and begged endlessly. Ji Yuxiong moved over to Yu Fu's side and whispered, Little Yu Fu, how do you plan on dealing with them? She would deal with them. It turned out that she was the root cause of this. Yu Fu said, I was thinking that the servants of the manor have always followed the rules, but these sly people do not seem to have been servants for a long time. It turns out that they were brought into the manor for my sake. It turns out to be my fault. Ji Yu Wenqing said, Father was doting on you. If I dealt with them, it's inevitable that father will blame me when he returns. Since they're people who were brought in for your sake, it would be better if you dealt with them. The chefs listened to their conversation and started kowtowing in fear upon hearing what was said. Young miss, have mercy. Young miss, have mercy. They would rather fall into the hands of the gentle Ji Yu Wenqing than fall into the hands of this Princess Zhenjiang. Yu Fu glanced at Steward Qi, then let out a sigh. Very well, then punish them by having them return as much of the rice as possible. Then return them to where they came from. They may bring back their own things and the things awarded to them by their masters. Each person will also be given 20 taels of silver as severance. This shall show that Marquis Gu's manor did not mistreat them. The chefs raised their heads in confusion. They could not understand. Why were servants who had stolen from their masters being given severance when being chased out? This was Marquis Gu's manner being the embodiment of kindness. Through Yu Fu's words and actions, she had inherited the spirit of Marquis Gu's manner. A glimmer of relief flashed through Steward Qi's murky gaze. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.